Ramen
Yeah, hi.
Sprouts.
How's it going, guys? I'm Hiram. I live stream out of Austin, Texas. I try to cover most of Austin. So, like, I'll try to travel to Dallas, San Antonio, Houston, some of the major cities here in Texas. Texas is huge, so there's just a ton of cities to capture footage from and everything. But primarily, Austin was my domain. Um,
Here's the deal.
Yeah, no, we were playing COD earlier though. It was really fun. I hope that I get to do that more with Andrew. But you have the snack squad and everything going,
I
right?
do. This next squad is in full force.
Yeah, the hashtag snack squad. A lot of fun gaming, a lot of funny moments. I enjoyed it a lot. So
Yeah, the snack squad is the number one community on the internet, in my opinion. But guys, so did you guys enjoy the ones that are still hanging out? We're just waiting for CJ, waiting on CJ.
waiting on
Hopefully,
CJ.
yeah, it's a common theme. But did you guys enjoy the debate reaction that we had?
A lot of funny
set
moments.
up instead of watching it on the news? Let me try
Oh, there you go. There's CJ. Let's get him in here.
CJ coming in.
Heyo,
Ayo,
I made
what's
it.
up? You made it.
Where's Andrew Mercado? Why do I see
know,
an
my
AM
computer-
and not
my
his
screen
face?
is-
Does he not know how to operate technologies?
Yeah, kind of. His camera can't handle two
No,
two
my camera
platforms.
can't handle two platforms. I'm using a laptop.
He's using a
You-
laptop.
He says he's using a computer. That's his excuse. Well, I'm using a computer, so that's why it should work, Andrew.
I'm also talking quietly, guys, because I'm trying to figure this out. So that's
Why are you talking quietly,
I'm
bro?
quieter because I'm talking quiet. But my,
How about you just do this,
that's
Andrew? Do
my
better.
hashtag
How about
isn't
that?
responding.
Do better.
Do better.
I gotta pull up
Look
a
at Hiram
hashtag.
Live, man. I like that, bro. That's a slick logo. I
My
bet.
computer hates
Thanks,
it.
man.
My
Some
computer hates this.
some guy called Kane put it together for me. Dude, he's super cool. He put it on his truck. He was just a really, really nice guy. But he
Yeah.
came up with the logo and everything.
His name is Kane.
Oh, word. His name is Kane. Yeah, he's part of the Hiram fam. He's just some good friend.
Dude, people named Kane are they're either like they own pit bulls or they listen to pit bulls. You know what I mean? That's just the only two
This guy
options.
owned pit bulls. Yeah, no. This guy
They're
owned
from
a
Dade
pit bull,
County for
probably.
sure. That's for damn sure. Where are you at? You're down in
Dude,
Texas
nice.
right now, right?
No, yeah, I'm in Texas. I'm in Austin, man. I'm out of Austin, Texas.
I
So
love Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Road trip.
I've never been.
Oh, Austin. I thought you said Boston. My fault.
No, Austin. Yeah.
I
No. I was really confused. I was like, Massachusetts. I've never been, but thanks for sharing that you really
Anytime,
like
bro. You can come with. You can show up.
Oh man, that's
How do you say Boston?
Boston.
Boston.
I don't know.
There's 5 different you, me, and these 3. 5.
Where did-
different.
I wonder where Andrew went. He'll be right back, right? Hopefully.
I like you asked me, like he'll be back, right?
Right.
Like,
Right? Maybe. Yeah, hopefully.
let me check his low jack real quick. Like, yeah, he's okay. He's okay. I got his life monitors going just fine.
Yeah.
Andrew's got one of those like little like life alerts. When he needs me, he's like, CJ, help, help.
Man, did you watch that debate?
That's right. I can't get up.
Did you get to watch the debate?
I did, man. The debate was much better coordinated this time around, and I didn't see the last one.
Yeah.
Because I was tainted after watching the first one, which I only made it through like an hour of, and then I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is too much. It's way too much. You know, like I couldn't take it serious anymore.
Yeah.
And so, but this one, sorry guys, I didn't mean to mute you out there. We got a spectating audience over here.
Nice.
Everyone's it's steeped in
Hi.
technologies.
How's it going? So,
Yeah, this is Hiram.
Hello.
hi. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. No, yeah, you said that this particular debate was a little more digestible. I think. You think that mute button helped at all? Do you
Absolutely.
like I
Dude,
saw Mercado
yeah.
counted like what was it 23-16 mutes, 23 on Trump, and like 16, 17 on Joe Biden.
How was he tracking it? Was there like
I have
because
no-
Andrew, because he's making stuff up. He's making it up. And he's just out there. He's like, well, if I had to guesstimate, I would say. I was trying to mute him myself. I had my Osmo thing. I was like, nope. My buddy Steve had a water bottle. He just kept squirting the TV when he wanted him to shut up. Squirt,
Yeah.
Squirt.
and they talked about, I hope Andrew makes it soon, but there was a COVID conversation and in Texas, it's pretty bad. I know in El Paso, like they're reaching 96% of ICU beds being full in the next few weeks. And it's just, it's exploding again in Texas. It looks like the curve is getting, a little bit higher again. And I don't know, man. There's just this whole thing about like shut down the country or it was either like shut down the country or save the economy. And it's just kind of strange that the conversations like that,
Yeah. It's wild is like, so you see an uptick in a lot of these places where they've had universities that have gone back in, where they've got college towns, and there's a lot of like close proximity situations there. I know on this area, at least, there was up north a little bit further. What are some of the names of those college towns up north that were having like real big uptick? Madison.
Like Fayetteville,
Oshkosh is another one. These other places they have like Sloshkosh. Yeah, so these like college areas that have Stevens Point. So they've had these big upticks, and like, but what's wild is from what I've experienced is you're not seeing a lot of like a spike in the COVID cases where there's businesses that have been reopened, right?
Yeah.
Which is odd because people are taking proper precautions, but you are seeing a huge impact on things where like people are going 100% viral. Like Microsoft out in Seattle is pushing towards 100% like e-transport or e-platform where everyone's going to be telecommuting, and it's impacting the community in a big way. There's a lot of businesses that are peripherally operating off of the infrastructure of those, those major tech companies that may not be like directly involved with them, but on the perimeter, be it, food business, even like any ancillary product lines that are being shopped out, shopping centers, things of that nature that don't have the influx of traffic anymore. So,
yeah. Yeah, man. And it looks like the people that are really profiting off of this are the big tech companies that were already making a lot of money, like Amazon, and like Joe Bezos making a ton of money from the closure. And honestly, like it's pretty disproportionate, right? Because the small businesses are the ones that are getting hurt. And it's kind of like the bigger businesses that have the resources to like move things to e-commerce and to do everything online. They're the ones that are actually kind of like sucking in all the lost profits from these small businesses, man. And at least in Texas, like I know a lot of small businesses have had to close because of the pandemic. So the whole economic thing is huge, and it's horrible. And it's hard to say, you know what I mean? Like, hey, shut down the country or think about the economic impact, because I think both kind of some merit, but at the same time, I think we're dealing with like human life. Hey, Andrew's back.
How much do you feel major business right now is influencing the poll? Andrew, now that you're back in, can you hear me as well, Andrew?
Could you?
Yeah.
Could you
what are you?
So the question I had was, how much do you guys feel major corporations right now, like Amazon? I'll just use Amazon. Are influencing a lot of the decisions made to either reopen or to maintain the shutdown status for a lot of places.
Wait. Rephrase your question. I'm sorry.
How much of a role do you feel Amazon or some of these major companies that are able to actually pull in profits during this pandemic play in what's happening right now with the reopening or the reopening of the country?
I think it's a big one, because what people are noticing is that like these bigger companies have found a workaround that makes these smaller businesses almost feel like they cannot compete with the power and the strength of Amazon. So I think that especially the people that are being directly affected, where they're losing profit, there might be a little bit more anger or animosity towards these bigger companies, and a bigger push to open the country a lot quicker economically, right? So you get a lot of people maybe being a little bit more fiscally conservative in that particular aspect, because they realize that there's kind of a need to open the country so that they can remain competitive against the bigger companies like Amazon. So I don't know. I've seen some people slightly switch that way, where they're like, you know what, I think the shutdown is important. I think COVID is important, but you know what, I'm starting to think that the shutdown might hurt us more than anything. I've heard some people say that. I don't know. Personally, it's a tough one, man, because my cousin died from COVID, right? So yeah, of course. No. It's important to talk about, and I think that I can see both sides. I can see both sides, and I can see why both people on, the people that are shut down the country, or the people that are, hey, save the economy, why both are concerned.
Yeah. It's what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts, Andrew? Actually, both of you, but Andrew, I want to know your thoughts real quick.
No, I just had to add my stream and get my mods all set up. Ask the question now.
I actually have another one for you. So, what are your thoughts on November 3rd? Election comes through. I mean, it may take more time than just day of, but ballots are cast. President is chose. Donald Trump wins. Let's say that happens. Like, what happens to COVID? What happens to? Because I keep hearing people say, like, well, November 3rd, Donald Trump wins. We're good. COVID will be shut. COVID will go away. It'll vaporize. But now,
I think maybe the level of like, pandering to whether you wear, the mask wearing, just the politics and like the games about the virus might start to go away. Because it's a heavily used political tool right now, unfortunately. It's almost, it was getting to the point where almost like, Republicans didn't wear masks, Democrats wore masks. It was getting to that point of that mirror, and I was just like, man, I just couldn't deal with it. And in all the back of our minds, we're thinking, the closer we get to the election, the virus is gonna like go away. It's not gonna go away, but maybe the unnecessary, I don't even know how to put, like, pandering to each side in the extreme might start fading away after the election's over, because it drums votes. The extremes on both sides are the ones that drum the votes up. So
I think that, I think you see that happening a lot. Like, issues getting hyper politicized, specifically as we're coming to the election, because now everything you can think of, a candidate's going to grasp at it and they're going to make it political. They'll be like, this is a Democrat Republican thing. And then a lot of people eat that up. And I think it really caught up in the politics of issues that are not necessarily very political, like, the virus. I think that everyone gets sick, no matter who you believe. I mean, Donald Trump got sick. He's a Republican, and Democrats equally get sick, from COVID. So, I hope that you're right, that even if, Donald Trump wins or not, that the issue stops being as political and there's more like efficient action on the constituency, or people, us, the country, because now we're not so caught up in the politics of, the whole situation.
Yeah. What's wild is in the debate tonight, you saw things that, like they were talking about wind, one of the comments, I know a lot more about wind than you do, Joe. Like that just stuck in my head. And
I know.
The throwback was like, don't give me that malarkey. And I was just like, all right.
That's what I said. It looked like we were watching, two men talking about what's for dessert after dinner at the nursing home. Sometimes some of the language they were using.
Sometimes. But yeah, I think that, like, what you're saying is they've been able to, like you said, I don't know, like a couple things that you see a lot nowadays is people have weaponized words. They've weaponized just people's thoughts, their views. They've turned weapons against themselves or against you. You know what I mean? They've turned these things into like ways to use like your own open-mindedness against you. And like you said, you've had things that have been used on a political base now that, I mean, I think has undermined so much of, and a lot of it maybe has shown a light on it, but like things like BLM and the need for, as we talked about, they touched on it during the debate, for racial equality and pushing for systemic changes and for recalibrating a lot of the things in our society. But
did you find it interesting that Trump said he was the least racist person in the recent 3 times? I mean, that to me, just as a statement,
that was just a section of the. Go ahead, CJ.
I know what I was saying. What got me was he was like, I can't see the whole room. It's pretty dark in here. But I would say,
yeah, I choked on that one.
What I'm thinking of is there's racism, and that's it. It's not like I'm more racist than you or you're more racist than I am. Like, I don't think that's one of those spectrum situations. You know what I mean? Like, if you're racist, I'm sorry, but it's not gonna be like, how racist are you? Like, how much do you hate people of other ethnicities? Like, just a little bit? How tolerant? It's kind of like, I find it odd to people like that it was put on a spectrum. Like, well, I mean, okay, you win this one. You may be a little less racist than I am, but what's the counterpoint to that?
So you would say that his statement almost kind of shows the way that he thinks about racism, whereas you don't think it should be on a spectrum, kind of the way he made it seem it might be.
Yeah, I think Donald Trump's a very competitive guy. You know what I mean? Like, he's competitive in everything. Like, his thing is he wants to be, the big dog in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
When it comes
to knowledge about wind and everything else, and so that being said, I think when he talked about racism, I think it could have been just kind of the way he speaks, but also that plays right into what I was saying, is that politics now have become it's a racial thing now, and it blows my mind now. You've got, if you're a Republican, you're a white supremacist, you're a racist. If you're a Democrat, you're a terrorist, and you obviously don't care about America and you want to terrorize the foundation of the world. And it's like, where you have all these people that are, even if they're center left, center right, they're getting attacked. Like, how dare you not pick a side? And it's like, whoa, when did I have to like jump on things? So when you have things like, like when you have things like I'm less racist than you, it's like, well, everyone pump the brakes a little bit. On a human level, can we appreciate that we're all in this together, right? Like, let's go ahead and work on systemic racism as a whole. It doesn't even have to be systemically, but personally, like, let's just try to change micro affirmations, right? Let's move away from these microaggressions and try to slowly push ourselves away from things that might, make us more racist than the next guy. Like, that's.
And the problem, man. Part of the problem, and I say this because it's part of the reason I do this, and I'm sure it's part of the reason you do this, is because it makes money, man. When you go out there and you say everyone protesting is a rioter, or every single one of these people here are white supremacists, you put that headline, as media, you get a ton of attention. And in that same way, you say that as a candidate and you get more points because you rile people up. You know what I mean? It's like, it works because people get mad or because people develop hates.
It's a similar thing, internet and real life. On the internet, oftentimes we see videos that are set up for clicks, clickbaity videos, whether it be the title, the headline, that stems from behavior in person, where it's like, you're speaking, you're playing to either a certain base of people that are gonna rile up, not as many, you play to the most extreme part of your base, because then they can rally the not so extreme people by making a situation either seem more or less important based off of their level of reactionary, how they react to a situation. They can drum up the rest of it. So I don't know if we can get rid of this type of culture, but I don't know. What do you think, CJ?
I mean, it's wild. So when I was doing that story in Chicago about Adil, or Eddie, the guy hanging off the side of Trump Towers, just what I just said, how he was hanging off the side of Trump Towers. That's just how I word it, right? But when I had it worded on the description, it said, man has hung himself on the side of Trump Towers in a protest, however I worded it. And I had thousands of people that commented. They were like, well, I thought he was hanging himself, like, by a neck. you know, and I was like, why? And then I realized that my thought process on wording is different than what they were reading, right? So I had to keep changing it. Like, oh, he suspended himself, right? So little things like just the wording we use. But I'm going to slice that off for a second. Come back to what you were talking about just a second ago when you mentioned the category, the categorical grouping of people. When you say like all these protesters are rioters, like all these people are out on riot, or all these white supremacists, like everyone out here is a white supremacist, like. And then you hear that with all cops are bastards, you know, and you hear these things where all, every. There's no absolutes and definites on everything. You know what I mean? You can't categorically say every group. You can definitely say. So what we experienced down with that Proud Boy rally, I've never been around the Proud Boys. Like I had no knowledge really of the Proud Boys, just from what I'd seen in the headlines. And so a lot of the questions I asked, like, well, are you guys white supremacists? And, you know, they kept getting a very, you know, reoccurring answer, which was like, no, I'm Puerto Rican, or I'm Cuban African, or, you know, and the Proud Boys are Polynesian down there. But I did see very white supremacist-esque, you know, attitudes in a lot of people that were there as well. So the larger a group grows, the diverse upbringing of ideologies within that group, right? So it's easy to, like Andrew's saying, to play to the extremities of the baser of the group, you know, because that's everyone else is already kind of comfortable in their nature. But when you have anyone else looking for those sensational headlines, it's easy to pick that small facet. And I think that happens a lot with the movements right now. You know, you've got like the movement has been overrun by all of these like terrorists or whatever you want to call, you know, this Antifa hive of terrorists. And I'm kind of talking on one subject matter right now, I think, but what I'm getting at is that like we can't group people and we can't generalize as much as we have been. You know, we have to open ourselves up. Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing, you know, touching on that point is that it really dictates the way we respond or interact with these other groups. And the way that we respond and interact with these other groups could either lead to peace, it could lead to people having civil discussion and persuading each other, or it could lead to war. And frankly, you know, in some cases, violence, you know, like, you know, verbal or otherwise. So, you know, it's really important to keep in mind that, you know, like you said, CJ, that as these groups grow, they become a lot more nuanced, a lot more complicated, and that categorizing things simply doesn't cut it, especially when we're trying to decide how we want to approach it, right? Do we want to label everyone as a particular, and within a particular ideology, like every single conservative as a white supremacist? And are we just going to, you know, kick them out, not listen to them, ignore them based off of that premise, which is absolutely an oversimplification of, you know, really what's happening.
It brings it back to the cancel culture, you know, thought.
It does.
It's on both sides. It's both sides now. Of just you'd rather just, you know, either try to take away them at their sponsorship level, or to you know, put out. I've said it multiple times now. You know, why confront somebody in person when you can write a tweet, and that will take them down harder than, you know, having a face-to-face conversation with them and handling it. But that's what it just. I've seen it since the beginning. Both sides, all beliefs. Just,
but it is important, right, to know what's happening within your group, and you know, if there's white supremacy or if there are things that you know aren't good, you know, like to always be able to call them out and hold yourselves accountable, because that's the thing that people want from police, right? More accountability. And
right.
That I mean, I've heard CJ say it. I've heard the higher standard of excellence. I think you're about to get to it. Because it's always for me, when I've been, you know, when I was in the military, and you always try to hold yourself to a higher standard. That's what we always said. And that's why, I mean, I stepped in because I said, you know, we need to hold our law enforcement to a higher standard. In certain areas, and I think that we could absolutely have those discussions and see where things can go that way. And that's why I started with it, and I'm not changing. That's just how I feel.
And I think, man, that rings true for everything. I think right now is that the higher level of excellence. We have to accept that we represent a group every time we walk out of our house. You know, we, as a white man, when I leave my house, other people see me, and if I interact in a way that's going to paint a bad light on the representation that I have, the personification that I bring with me, you know, that's up to me to control. you know, and same thing with the police. Like Andrew said, anyone in a uniform, the second you put on a uniform, you have to realize that everybody looks at you as a representation of everybody else in that same uniform. So there needs to be a higher level of accountability. But some things that have been happening that really blew my mind recently, so like that Proud Boys rally, we saw a lot of incredible interactions. Even my security is Polynesian. You know, he's a big, well, sorry, not Polynesian. He's Filipino, which I think that's still kind of Polynesian, isn't it? Either way. So John was there, and he was having conversations with guys that he thought he was going to have problems with, that he had seen in the news and in reports that were kind of toting what he thought was like going to be a white supremacist banner. And they were like hugging it out, just having great conversations. And he was opened up to some things. And see, while we were down there, someone flashed the whole white power symbol to us, you know, which I get mistaken as I do it sometimes, the whole OK symbol, right? And the guy next to him slapped his hand down. I was like, hey, knock that shit off, man. Or knock that dumb shit off. And it was an older dude who slapped the guy's hand down. And it wasn't like, oh, you're going to let him know what we think. He was embarrassed that the guy flashed that little hand symbol to us. And we all kind of looked at each other like, wait, what just happened? Like, that was a moment for me. That was a moment. And I was like, for that guy, he's going to go home tonight. And he's going to have to think about how he was embarrassed in front of this group of dudes for doing something that he maybe it's cool. Maybe he believed like, I'm all about white power. But he was sending out a message, but someone else in his group and his organization checked him and was like, bro, that's not what we're about. Knock that shit off. You're making us look bad by doing that.
Yeah.
So hopefully that guy goes home and he's thinking about it. Like, man, why is that happening? There's going to be a process in his mind. He's going to have to microprocess that and think about why that's an issue. And hopefully that opens him up. And those are the things that we're talking about. With, like, you look at Derek Chauvin, had one other officer said, hey man, that's enough. Get up. How different would the world be right now? If there was that one moment where somebody were to make one move, one small gesture, even the smallest of gestures can make the biggest of impacts. Like, what if somebody just walked up and slapped Derek Chauvin on the shoulder, like, hey, you know, not even like said anything, just gave him like tap him off, like that kind of thing. You know, like those things need to happen all the time now. And we can do it real simply, like
holding each other accountable. It's really easy. It's really very simple to do. It's just some people have fear doing so, thinking, you know, something's going to they're going to have backlash coming onto them, or
it's the backlash.
or how is this going to make me appear? Do I appear weak by calling out, you know, not, you know, you don't even have to call them out and, you know, and make a scene. You pull them to the side. You say, hey man, you know what you're doing, or, you know, whoever you're just having a conversation with, just say, hey, that's not cool. Or, you know, man, hey, you just have a conversation one-on-one. You don't need to make a big scene. You don't need to tweet about it. If you have an issue.
I have a question. So, you know, I've kind of looked into the group, the Proud Boys, and, you know, even though like they're not at all like explicitly white supremacists, I actually interviewed the group like a week ago. They were down at a women's march and they were counter protesting the women's march here in Austin.
Okay.
And
what kind of women's march was it?
It was like the yearly women's march. I think it was like the national day that most cities did the women's march on. But anyway, I talked to them, and it's really obvious that like they're not explicitly like white supremacists at all by any means. I think most people that have joined the group actually aren't necessarily racist. There might be some people there, but one thing that I found interesting about the group is that like it was kind of a response to like the justice movement, specifically around, you know, women's rights and stuff. And it felt a lot like All Lives Matter in some senses, where it was like, you know, yeah, women matter, but this is a group of boys and we need to be proud to be boys. And it was kind of like it almost felt to me like an All Lives Matter type of situation where people were protesting the Black Lives Matter, right? But in this case, it's like a protest to things like the women's movements and gender equality. What do you think of that? I mean, do you know much about it? What do you have any thoughts about it? Like,
so I'll start first because CJ will have more experience. We don't really have that here in Minnesota. We had the Boogaloo Boys, but they were protecting the square, George Floyd Square, and provided security. But I didn't really want to, like, it just was too confusing to me because there was just too many groups that had different, like, I was told that this group is doing this for this reason. I said, okay. And I was just going with it, rolling with it. It was because there's so many groups that have so many different, what's the word? Different
beliefs, ideologies.
Beliefs, ideologies.
Yeah,
Thank you. Ideologies.
Yeah, right there. I got you.
PTSD, mind blank. Different ideologies that you never know it, and not every single one's on the same page either. Not every single group has been 100% on the same page across the board unanimously. So I've probably had the least amount of experience with that group, and that's why I went to Portland and wanted to find out more about them and bring my platform and then you can hear them yourself. You can hear that group yourself speak and try to talk to as many in that group as we can, because there's so many, you can't talk to every single person. But at least you can try to, get a idea at least, or form your own idea or what have you. But I don't have enough, I haven't been able to be around them enough to get more of an opinion.
Yeah.
Other than, trust what my close friends say. And that's all I can. And I have close friends now that I can trust, like streamers that, are there with them, and that's the only thing I can do until I can bring my platform. So that's all I can say. Go ahead, TJ.
What's funny is I wanted to pull up like kind of what the mainstream definition is of Proud Boys, right? So, and it plays into what Andrew just said, which is you have to ask as many questions as possible. And I can't see what the comment said. This year the Women's March was for.
I just want to pull that up because that was actually very accurate. At least in Austin, great. This was pretty. Yeah.
But one of the things it says is the Proud Boys is a far right and neo-fascist, and this is like if you just generally Google Proud Boys, right? And so this is where, and I'll draw the parallel here. If you Google it, it'll say Proud Boys is a far right and neo-fascist male-only organization that promotes and engages in political violence in the United States and Canada. All right, their major actions, they say, are political violence, harassment, picketing, and vandalism. Their motives are opposition against left-wing and progressive groups, and they've been around for about 4 years, right? And I know that part of that chauvinism is kind of one of the things that is pushed in there as well. It wouldn't have been itemized in this maybe, but it is part of like one of the things that you'll talk about in there. But what got me was, like Andrew said, like you have to ask everybody. Like if you want to know the entirety of a group, you have to talk to everybody. But there are things, and I think to play the devil's advocate here, like when I talk to guys down there in Portland that were, completely against any kind of racism. Like you had James Sullivan, Utah, who's a black man, Port. And did you get a chance to see him, Andrew? James Sullivan, when you were down there?
No.
Okay,
I didn't get a
chance. All right. Well, we were talking a lot about. I mean, a lot of things we got to talk about, but like I said, within every group, the bigger you get, you're going to find different ideologies and different fundamental beliefs, and that's what's happening, I think, with a lot of things in the world right now. Whenever you put, and this is why it's hard for me. And I think staying on is a big deal and everything, to put a moniker over your head. This is what I am, because now you've identified with the majority of that group as to the representation that you have to the world. If you're a Republican, you fall underneath that bracket. Now everything that is Republican is you, right? If you're a Democrat, that's your box. You just picked your box. Mm-hmm. And stepping out of that, even when it comes down to religious beliefs, like I don't know what either one of you would subscribe to. I'm Christian, and I think that for me is safe in saying that encapsulates what I believe. And but even in that, like if you pick a denomination within that, you have to maintain underneath fundamental principles there. And so
do you think it just goes back to the fact that it's uncomfortable to step out of that box into someone else's box of life that is not it's not at all what you might see, but finding humanity within that.
Humanity, and that's what I wanted. That's what it was going to come back to. Is you talked about it. Hiram, do you like to say Hiram or Hiram?
Hiram is fine. Hiram is fine too. I don't mind. Honestly, don't really think about it much.
Can I call you H2O? or Harizzle. Either way,
Harizzle.
I mean, whatever
Rizzle for
works.
shizzle.
So
Hiro G. But what I was saying is that we need to celebrate the individuals as well. You know, and you hear people say like, I don't see color, and it's like, well, that's too. You need to be aware that there's definitely, right? Like you can apply that to your life and be proud of the color of your skin. You can be proud of the things you are. But so many people are afraid to even say that. You know, they're afraid to stand out. They're afraid to be seen. They're afraid of people judging them based off of who they are. And I think that we need to look further than that and appreciate that that's an insecurity in us, right? Because we don't feel confident in maybe what we represent. So we need to celebrate those individuals and speak up, you know, let your voice be heard, step out there. And if you like, when I was overseas, like people would say, don't say you're from America. Like when I was over in Egypt, they're like, don't you're from America. They hate Americans over here. So the first thing I'd say whenever anyone asks, I'm like, they're like, oh, where are you from? I'm like, oh, I'm from America, Washington State, Seattle, Washington. They're like, but wait, you're pretty cool though. And I'm like, yeah. Maybe now we can try to undo some of the engineering that's brought you to believe that all Americans are assholes, you know? So we can hold ourselves to a higher standard of excellence and appreciate that we can change the way people see things. Every single one of us has an opportunity to go out and change the common view of an entire backing of people that happen to meet our personification. So
yeah, and on, you know, on the question of like the Proud Boys, I find their ideas very interesting. That, you know, kind of a response to social justice movement. And, you know, at best, honestly, Proud Boys are just people that probably are unnecessarily interested in being, you know, guys. And that's cool. I mean, that's fine. But I don't really think it's necessary to have a group like that. And I think
did you hear what Enrique Taro said?
They could be white supremacists. What was that?
What Enrique Taro said, the chairman of the group, when I asked him about Proud Boys, he's like, well, basically, we're just a fraternity of guys, a fraternity of drinking buddies with the Patriot problem. And I was like, I mean, if you want to simplify it, okay. I've met a lot of real asshole frat boys in my day. You know what I mean?
So I think, I agree. So but
I'm not saying that's what he's representing.
Yeah, no.
I go back to what Ram's saying. So what Ram's saying is it just doesn't believe it's necessary because the Proud Boy group was formed from, I think, was it Reddit or like it was an internet, you know, thing. It wasn't even a real, you know, group until they decided to bring it into real life. Like it originated. Baseball team, actually. Yeah, it originated on the internet. So it was from memes and like a meme culture type, just internet groups, and like they just started forming and rallying in person. So it's like.
I don't like that. At the very least, like they're kind of a response to social justice movements. It seems like I don't understand. Again, everyone in that group is different, but it's a strange group for sure. Some of their ideology just doesn't sit well with me. But I definitely wouldn't go so far as to generalize everyone. I think that each person in there has their own individual and probably
different motivations for being in it.
Yeah, interesting. Absolutely. And different motivation. And I think that, you know, that's what sometimes people don't understand when you talk about issues like this, because I'm reading some of the comments and people are saying, oh, well, CJ's supporting this or defending the group. But really what you're saying is, whether you agree with them or not, you can understand that within the group, there's so many different people with so many different ideas. And
every single group is exactly like that.
Sometimes people.
I celebrate the individual. Yeah. To be very clear, to address with a comment you just had, I celebrate the individual, not the group. So I support individuals. And I truly believe that every person is entitled to their own essence, their own beliefs, their own.
But always be ready to hold the group accountable, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's what we're saying.
There's individuals, but as a group, it could be rotten. So it's always good.
And I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where, you know, if your motivation you feel drives the overarching, you know, flow of whatever group you're in, and if you feel that holds more power or is in a morally sound, you know, area of direction than the individual to your left that is just absolutely not, on the same page and is in there for their own reasons that are a complete 180 from yours, and this goes for any group, that you need to call them out, and that goes back and have and say, hey, like either leave or get out or stop it. You gotta
Ron, you just said something. You just said something that actually really made me think about the what do you say about the basically if all the fruit from the bush, basically if the bush is rotten, you know what I mean? Like I don't know how you worded it.
I said that it's important to hold the group accountable if the group itself or its ideology, its founding ideology is rotten. I mean, like it's good to acknowledge the individuals. It might be, there for good reasons, but it's also really important to make sure that, the fundamentals of the group isn't bad.
Right. And I think to really address that, you're right. I think that's something I do need to put into more of a forefront of the thought process. There is that, like, I would never, you're never going to hear me say something like, well, the Nazi party is bad. But I'm sure there's plenty of Nazis that were great,
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I get that. I'm hearing that now as we're talking about it. Yeah. I can appreciate that when you do have a banner that's being waved. Yeah. Like if you're at that rally and you're like, no, I'm with this group, but I'm not like all of this group.
Yeah.
And no, it doesn't matter because you've assigned yourself to that group, and so if that group has, like you said, a rotten core, if that's what's happening, then you might have to take your branch from that tree. You know what I mean? And so you're right. And that's something I do need to think more about, because I try to give myself too much clearance to like associate with the person and not the whole process. Even I need to appreciate the process though might be broken, So.
Both are important though. And that's the thing, it's because it takes so much to be able to live with both, to be able to both accept that not every single person in a group is necessarily 100% bad, and also that the group as a whole could be bad because of its founding ideology. Like both can exist at the same time, but because that's so complicated, sometimes people are too lazy to want to think both at the same time. It's so much work.
It's easier.
It's easier to accept one or the other.
It's easier to go with the flow and just accept it, and that goes back to holding yourself and others accountable within whatever group you have. With even on my softball team, we play softball. I'm a softball manager. I can't have my guys yelling at the umpire, chewing, throwing the bat if they.
That's what I do.
Pop out, yeah. So and then to me, I might look weird calling out my friends as a. They might be older than me or whatever, saying, hey, stop acting like a fool out here. It's just got to do. Yeah. Just got to do it.
There's a fear, I think, of oh, sorry, go ahead. Good.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead. I was just going to say minimum wage, but you go with what you were going to say.
Well, no, I think, and then I definitely want to hear your thoughts on that. But I think that's funny because people like, and I've dealt with it, and I'm not going to get deep into the topic, but I recently dealt with it where it's kind of like people are afraid to be seen, like they're afraid to step up and call someone out on something. But I think that's so much of what's happening in the world right now. And it goes back to what I was saying about like, if you feel the compulsion, if you feel like if there's something in you, and I've been embracing this a lot lately. I don't know, there's probably a term for it. It's probably got some Buddhist theology that goes into it, but with really accessing that part of you that is having a real core attachment to something and just going with it, and allowing yourself to move in that direction instead of fighting the organic nature of your being, and I think that what happens a lot of times is we see something, but we don't say anything. Yeah. And I think that right now we've had issues where we don't say anything. And so like what your comment that you actually just posted actually is a big deal. It's tough because I think, I don't know, I'm gonna have to think on that one. You kind of sidetracked me a little bit, but SJ, who's SJ? Good SJ. On you, man. Good SJ. I appreciate what you're saying because it shouldn't be confusing to call out hate groups. It's just hard to categorize.
I think it's because the thing is, I think people don't think we can do both, but we can. Like, we can both call out hate groups with fervor, but also accept the fact that everyone that might be in that hate group, some people are confused, man. I mean, some people are part of the Proud Boys because honestly, like, they want to celebrate that they're male, and there's nothing, necessarily wrong with that. Nobody's going to tell you be ashamed of being a guy because obviously that's not the society we live in, or hopefully we don't live in that society. But of course, you should be proud to be who you are and what you represent. And so like there could be people in there that don't necessarily align with the hate, but sort of align with the ideology. There might be people that are confused. They're in there because their friends are in there. I mean, like it's just really hard to go out and try to kill everyone or put everyone on a stake that aligns with a particular group. But as a whole, the group can be called out for its founding ideologies. I just don't think you need to go like it's like with police. Like you could say that some people with ACAB, they say that the system of police is bad, but it doesn't mean that you have to go out and shoot and kill every cop, because it's not literal in the sense that like it's literal in the sense that like the system is rotten, but not literal that every single individual in that system is rotten. I hope that explains it. Like, and it's hard. Like I said, it's work to try to think through those two things.
It is.
It's fighting yourself and your instincts.
So I think that's why it's so important to have a sense of self-awareness. I think it goes back to who we are as human beings. It brings us back to early human times, tribalism, collectivism, group thinking. Hiram talked about it earlier, where it's oftentimes easier to just go with the flow of the group, whether or not your ideology aligns with with the mass or not. I think we're just really coming back to it again at the root cause of we need to hold ourselves accountable and look at each other and look at ourselves in the mirror at the end of each day and say, what did I do to make myself or those around me better today? What can I directly do within my life and my circle of either family, my neighborhood, the school my kids go to, what can I do to improve those areas in my life? And then those areas will start to improve the bigger areas that you might not be able to reach. And then you don't have to rely on, groupthink or trying to fall into a category of people that might not necessarily align with everything that you believe, because you're in control of your own actions. And it's hard. It's hard. It's not easy for everybody to do, to have self-awareness and to just take control of yourself. I think that's why us three are having this conversation, because all three of us did that at the start of the summer. But it's highly important to continue doing that. It's a everyday practice. I even have to do it more than once every day just to check myself. Did I watch my language every time I write a post or write something? I check my language, just checking myself at my level. And I feel that can then translate to a higher level that I can't reach to, because someone else might see that.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, what do you guys think about the minimum wage? It was
that was a good transition.
I know, yeah. I right. We were talking about a little bit about the presidential debate. I think we had a really awesome conversation on the topic of race and some of the groups that have been at the forefront of this conversation, like the Proud Boys. But they also talked about things like the minimum wage, and the big number I think is $15 an hour. Trump said he would consider it to an extent. I have no clue what that meant exactly. He said to an extent, but Joe, I think, generally supports this. Joe Biden generally supports this particular idea. Trump seems more on the federalist side, where he's like, leaving it to states to choose what the minimum wage should be. I mean, like, should we leave it up to states? Should there be a federally mandated minimum wage of $15 an hour?
CJ, you go ahead. I just talked for a
while.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah, why not? Yeah, sure. I know that. I think the minimum wage in Wisconsin is like $8 an hour, something like that.
but if you're a bartender or a waitress, it could be $3 or $4.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like $7.90 or just it's under $8, and I can check it out right now. And the minimum wage in Washington, where I'm at, is quite a bit higher.
Yeah.
I mean,
And in your
well, I
experience,
guess-
does that hurt? Would that hurt small businesses though? You think that would actually hurt small businesses? Like, do you think small businesses can keep up with like $15 an hour across the nation?
Well, I think that well, it comes down to like what kind of, I guess maybe what kind of businesses are operating in a place that'll give you that type. Like we're in Washington, we've got Microsoft, we've got Google, we have Amazon, we've got major corporations at Costco. We've got these big businesses that are up there that operate that do elevate the spending rate. Now there should be a consummate rise with the pay rate as well. Absolutely. And I think what's happened a lot of times is I think that'll help, standardize a lot of the opportunities in the States if we were able to give people an equal platform of earning. Because I think right now you've got a lot of people that live in the areas around them, by them, because they've got, an influx of all this money for people that are making an exorbitant amount of cash, these radical salaries. And then they're stuck to a minimum wage salary or minimum wage earning. And they haven't quite gotten to a point where they're able to keep up even on a scale where it makes it, a livable wage. So I don't know. What did you say that the minimum wage? I mean, I'm just asking a local here.
I think it's a tough question, but what I do know is that when I studied, I studied international security, and I spent a lot of time researching specifically like income inequality. And income inequality, believe it or not, shocker, is the number one cause for violence and crime in countries. Like you can almost, predict how much crime there's going to be by trying to see how unequal things are, how rich the rich are compared to how poor the poor are. Yeah. And so that's true. And I think that, anything we can do to bridge that gap, whether it's through education or raising the minimum wage, we should do. And that's why I think, like, for example, even Donald Trump said that to an extent that he acknowledges that might be a good idea, right? I think that, it's so crazy because it feels so political. But almost literally in this conversation, Trump and Joe Biden agreed for the most part on the fact that wages needed to be raised, that there needed to be something done about the income inequality in the United States. It's just, maybe slightly different approaches, with Trump being more willing not to do it himself, but to leave it up to states. But
also traditionally conservatives are small government. They often deflect. They push for candidates with policies that deflect to the states, whereas Democratic candidates are oftentimes more about federal policies and things that we can do at the federal level. Yeah. But yeah, I agree to hear Trump's almost agree with the $15 thing. But there's a lot of conservative viewpoints that are starting to switch, including the minimum wage and legalization of marijuana, and it's starting to change now as the time's gone.
Yeah. No, yeah, a lot of it is. I think that like there's a lot more similarities in a lot of ways. Like I know a lot of conservatives that support, police reform in one way or another. Most people that I've ever interviewed, whether they're on one side or the other, always almost agree on the fact that the war on drugs is a terrible is just not working, right? And I think most people agree with that. A lot of money's being spent, nothing's really being done. And Joe Biden actually mentioned that, right? Saying that he didn't want people who do drugs in jail, but instead in like rehabilitation centers.
Mm-hmm. That's a big deal. I know that's something I know you live in a big city. I think all three of us live in large cities, and we can agree that the drug problem in our cities is a massive issue. And you've got a lot of people where you've got a lot of overcrowded jails for minimal, amount of drug charges. They've been making changes on that too, but the
So I
was going to go down a big rabbit hole on that one. I don't want to
I know. So that's your
I
area.
looked down too. I was looking down there, and I'm like, we don't want.
Yeah, corrections is so deep. I didn't get to that part of. I mean, I was in school to become an addiction counselor. I was going to be an LADC, licensed alcohol and drug counselor, and work with veterans that are addicts. That's what I wanted to work with, is the veteran population. And I had completely different views on it before, I went to school, and I started using myself 3-4 years ago, and I've been clean for a year and 9-10 months now. So
Congratulations, man.
yep. So I'm also an addict myself, so I know all about that life, and I turned my own life around. So I know about the marginalized and that type of life, and how many people do come out of it, and the success that people can have is remarkable. And these programs work. Even for me, when I started learning about it, like the safe using sites, where people will go and they'll get a clean needle and have like a nurse there with, and they can safely use, but that, how much that percentage affects sexually transmitted disease transmission, and lowers that, and just different areas of things that we don't even think about and understand. And so it opened my eyes up to everything, in that these programs work for addicts, and especially the community building programs work.
Do you feel like
that's huge?
And in that like conversation from the debate, who do you think could or is more willing to do criminal justice reform in a way that benefits communities for, towards like rehabilitation versus like, just punishment that leads to possibly more trouble down the line? Because, Donald Trump during the debate, he said, well, I've done this and I've done that. I've ended certain programs and I've reduced the prison population. And I even think he threw in some numbers here and there. But, from the debate, man, who do you feel lines up more closely towards what you feel works in this particular category?
I think I don't know, and that's tough one. I think Joe Biden's got he's got some viewpoints on kind of like the on a base level, working with people that have issues, working on a more of a social level. We're down here, I guess,
mental
more
health.
like the mental, yeah. Absolutely. Sorry.
If we have more money put into behavioral health and understanding and mental health, maybe even in schooling, start teaching kids about mental health and the importance of self-care growing up from the beginning.
Yeah.
And just different practices, and doing what's called mindfulness exercises, which to me before sounded ridiculous, just sitting there in silence with your eyes closed, and then just like, and then you listen to this recording and it tells you different things just to pick out. It doesn't even take long. It takes like a minute, and then it's just like and then you can really help focus. It's just different exercises that not every exercise might not be for you, but it might work for somebody. And I know that they do work. And I think mental health is huge in that area, and we can, it might help down the road affect addiction rates as people become adults, or as young as kids become adults, because they've had mental health training and education as they become young adults, because we didn't have anything like that really. I can't tell you any mental health classes I had. We had health. I learned about how to I know what a condom looks like. But besides that, I mean, seriously,
Oh man,
fail. So I think if we put more money and resources there, kids will be more equipped when they become our age to deal with that. We're starting to now, and they're implementing it now as we're adults, but they really need to start at the adolescent level.
Well, it's happening so much younger now. Kids are using drugs at a much younger rate. You have like teen suicide rates are rising.
Social media, cell phones.
Well, what happens, man, and it's sad, is there's a disconnection, and we can talk, and I'm sure, Andrew, we're talking right into the, you and I, we've talked a lot in the history of things, but like right now, especially with COVID, there's been a huge separation from people. You know what I mean? There's not so many people that are able to actually see each other and communicate, which means with a lot of these meetings, NA meetings, like they're not happening. They've been almost completely, cut out. So there's been a huge relapse rate with a lot of people that are in the drug community, right? But you also have people in schools that are relying on each other to kind of maintain that mental sobriety, you know what I mean? And I think at a young age where young people are struggling really hard just to get through, to live through that daily life of being a young person. And if you look at statistics, like they wake up statistically to, the divorce rate is up over 60% now. So broke statistically, a lot of times they're dealing with domestic violence situations. They got to deal with domestic abuse. Then they have to go off to school and try to deal with being a student, right? All the while trying to figure out how to be like a teen or a kid, how to do that, the complexities of that. And then after that, they have to deal with, an extracurricular event, hopefully get a scholarship to subsidize the schooling that they can't afford. Then they go to a part-time job, hopefully to learn some of the life lessons they need to learn and some of the life skills they need to learn, but also to put away some money for the college that they're probably not going to get the scholarship for. Then they have to go home and deal with not only their personal social life, but then that home life that may not be the best already. There's a lot of pressure on young people. If you think about it, so you're seeing suicide rates go up there. And so when we look past that problem, like I think right now, fundamentally, if we could look at making changes, we need to start generationally changing things. We need to start looking beyond ourselves and stop expecting things to be changed for us right now, but realize that we need to start planting seeds that our children can go ahead and reap the harvest on. Because right now we need to invest everything back in. And like what Andrew was talking about, there needs to be a huge amount of mental health reform in the school systems as well. We need to see more mental health counselors that are present for them as well, as not just that, but in the streets, because you're going to find they're going to go from.
There was a serious problem if I had to go talk to somebody, and that's just not even, that's not okay at all. Everybody should be able to talk to somebody and have an outlet to go to if you need someone to talk, and there should be no shame, especially as a man, to open up and talk to someone, and we shouldn't be afraid to do that.
Agreed.
You're talking about all this reform, and Andrew, I really agree with you on that. But something really interesting in the presidential debate was something I think both candidates kind of agreed on, but pretended to disagree with. Was that Donald Trump kept saying like, well, what are you doing about it, Joe? Like, you've been vice president. Like, what did you do about it then? And why do you say you're going to do all these things and didn't do them before? And at some point, I think Joe Biden said it's because of Congress. You know what I mean? So there's all this change that, I think we need to make. And we get caught up sometimes in the presidential elections, but really sometimes, that change happens or it doesn't happen because of
or it's only talked about right before the election.
Yeah, and it has to do a lot with who's in Congress. People forget about that. When you have those midterm elections coming up, nobody votes because nobody thinks Congress is important. But there's all this mental health reform, all these things that need to happen, and to make them happen, we got to get through Congress first.
And that's why.
Real fast, Hiram, why do you feel that is? Like, why do you think that we've lost sight of the fact that getting congressional is the only way we're going to make real change? Like, where's that?
About to say that.
Where are we losing that?
I was just about to say that before you said
that. I think people, for one, overstate the power of the presidency. President has a lot of power, but he can't do anything without the other two branches, the Supreme Court and the legislature. You know what I mean?
Executive and legislature.
We kind of glorify the executive branch because it's the one guy that represents us. And the president has a lot of power, but I think we get too caught up in the politics, the amount of money that goes into presidential elections because they're national, you know what I mean, versus the local elections that are only local, right? So a lot of it has to do too that people are really short-sighted. They're like, you know what? I don't care if it's happening in El Paso, like, who cares that El Paso has more Republicans, or who cares that El Paso has more Democrats? Like, I only care about the city I live in. But it's like, there needs to be a more concerted effort to be concerned about everyone that's in government, not just the people that, have the most money or the people that are at a national stage. Because the local congressmen, the people that represent your district, they're making decisions that are keeping us from being able to progress, in some of these areas. Having a much bigger impact even in a lot of cases than the
term limits. Can we have them? Can they exist?
Say it one more
Hold on.
time, just like you did.
I gotta say it like Joe Biden. Term limits. Term limits. There, I said it like both of them. Can we have those? Can these
Only if you do it like this,
dinosaurs that lose? I don't know. I'm supposed to. These dinosaurs, man.
I'm curious. Do you have you ever looked into going into politics, Hiram?
Me?
Like on a local level, like as like an alderman or even.
Yes, actually, I've been interested at some point in my life to run for Congress for quite some time now. I did debate when I was in high school, and I really loved it. And I thought maybe one day I'd run for Congress. So I'm waiting, though. I first want to go to law school. Like I have a lot of things I want to do before I run for Congress. So
How old are
maybe
you, boss?
I'm 23.
Man, you're representing a great community right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Young man. He's a young man in here. 23. I'm voting for you, bud.
I'm voting for you.
2027, buddy. You got my vote.
Thanks.
I feel like it's gonna have to be a 7-year gap right now. You got to finish school, and then you're gonna start in 23. All right.
Millennial generation.
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah,
I can't do the math. I don't know where the math just came out on that one, honestly.
It's important. Get involved in your community. It's just like first thing, man. Local politics matters so much. Like city council, the state legislature, and then you have the national stuff. But everyone gets caught up, and again, and I thought it was interesting that Donald Trump kept trying to get Joe Biden to say like, oh well, I didn't do this because I didn't care, but really what Joe Biden ultimately said was true. It's like, no, there's so much more to it than just me making the decision or pulling the trigger.
He did say, you're talking to Joe Biden right now. This is Joe Biden you're talking to. This is Joe Biden. Have you heard the name?
Have you heard it?
And then DT started doing it too. He's like, well, I am Donald Trump. You know me. And I was like, all right, guys, let's pump the brakes on the third party references.
Yeah.
Third person, I mean, not third party, third person references. But
man, climate change, guys, in the presidential debate, Trump says it's going to hurt, the jobs that already exist in the energy sector. Talking about doing the trillion tree program, he said we have the lowest numbers in carbon emissions in 35 years. And then Joe Biden was like, no, global warming is an existential threat. We need more support for climate efforts. I mean, where are you guys on climate change?
It's funny. I just go ahead, Drew, if you want.
Dude, shit's melting, man. Ice
melting.
caps are disappearing, and they're not growing feet and walking away. So I don't know why. I mean, so why can't?
Better learn to swim.
Why is it a? It's just why is it a debated issue?
Do you feel like it's a lot like COVID, where it's like?
Yeah, I mean, we see the evidence, but it's become so politicized. But it's like been proven, like with physical evidence. I don't know.
Well, what do you say with people that are worried about losing their jobs here in Texas? A lot of people have.
Are you talking about with the coal?
Yeah, like a lot of people here in Texas, like in Houston, have jobs in the oil industry, and
so I can't. No, I'm not even gonna. So that's why it's.
Well,
I can't even speak on that because I don't know anything about that type of industry, and I don't want to make anybody mad that.
Matt, but CJ ran into a fire. So
yeah, we did run into a fire, but that's
you drove into a fire. A lot of people say it was caused by climate change, man. Like,
what's crazy about that is, first of all, don't mess with big oil, because they will assassinate you. I talked to a guy from Rock the Vote the other day, and he called me, and he actually is kind of like a climate lobbyist, and so he was talking a lot about how. Actually talked extensively about a lot of climate change stuff, but yeah, when we were talking about the climate change and some of the fires that happened, a lot of those, and these are things that there are changes that can be made on a man-made level, So when I did Mike Peel, what's that?
No, go ahead, buddy. Go ahead.
I was saying Mike Peel. When I talked to him, the guy from Peel Logging. he was talking about a lot of the wildfires. Like those were a lot of federal force that burned, and they burned because they weren't thinned properly. Had they been thinned properly, they would have had not only, the opportunity to go ahead and mitigate the amount of fire that was, spreading and the rate that it traveled. If this is what you're talking about, I want to make sure we're talking about the right thing. But also the fact that, there had been money that would have been made that could have gone into government programs that would have helped on local and small and city level. So
I think it's also important that if we make sure that it's like the locally owned or locally operated, businesses, because even so, for example, when Trump, the president, visited Iowa and talked to farms about the storm damage, he had only talked to the corporate farmers. He didn't talk to any of the locally owned farms. They just don't. I'm not saying it might just be him, but I don't know if federal politicians talk to locally owned, or family owned operations or businesses, farms, mines. I don't know if they do that. I think they just ask the corporately operated, operations, and then they make decisions off of what they say is what I think is going on.
I'm gonna time out for 1 minute, guys. I'll be right back. I gotta use the restroom real quick. So.
Bathroom break.
Bathroom break. Safe.
After these messages, I'll be right back.
This Coke.
Hey, are you still sore, Andrew? How sore are you?
I haven't stood up in 10 hours. I haven't sitting.
we're playing COD, and then he did.
I haven't moved. I reached over. I found a sweatshirt and put it on. And standing up isn't a good idea.
Yeah, Andrew's definitely dedicated to this, man. If you weren't convinced that you should donate to him, then now you should be. Gone up into that.
Wait, Andrew's dedicated to sitting down? Is that what you're saying, Hiram?
No, to live.
Dedicated. Just
he's dedicated to being a lazy asshole. That's exactly
what he say. Hey, what's Andrew doing? Oh, he's sitting there.
He's still sitting there.
Man. Oh shit.
Yeah, man. So at least that debate was a lot more civil than
yeah, it was. I like the moderator did a better job.
I found it, you could tell Trump was holding back though.
Mm-hmm.
Like he would try to speak and be like
the shit out of that that podium. You saw him and he's tapping it. And just his he was not happy because they audibly, we were doing a mute counter and I could hear when they would quickly, change it, but they audibly muted him like at least 4 times of the counter we did.
Yeah.
You could hear his, the voice go, cut him out.
Man, I see your.
But even so, though, I think she interjected twice where she became, where she started debating Trump a little bit, but she only did that, I think, twice I counted. Whereas, Chris Wallace was like that Spider-Man meme the last time where they were just they were all debating each other. It was crazy.
Yeah. Hey man, I like your gear in the back.
Oh yeah, man. I got about the Snack Squad.
Snack Squad.
Online community. They made that. Shout out to them.
Nice.
I'll make sure that this is always showing up there. 60 minute time.
Yeah.
And the gear stuff. It's simple. And then my bed too. I gotta have my bed in it so that way you guys know that I'm sleeping and then I'm here. It's not that far.
Yeah.
Moderator was much better.
Let me see. What else did I write down? I wrote so many things down from this.
I love it.
From this debate.
I did because it's hard to write it down while
that's why I was asking you, man. That's a lot of work. I don't know if I could do live reactions. It's I feel like it's really it's a lot of pressure.
It is. It's just especially because I physically choked one time or on one of the comments that was made, but it was I just gotta let it ride, and I just focused on the how many times each one was muted. It's all a mental game. I just focused on the muting of the mics and then words were in the background.
Yeah.
You'll never mute my mic, Andrew. Never.
Hey, do you
somebody talking right now?
Oh, no.
Oh, I'm just kidding. I thought CJ was muted.
You may not know what that's
Sick joke.
attached to, Andrew,
Sick
but I'm
joke.
sure you can
Joke.
figure it out.
Sick joke.
So, hey, do you guys know what Trump means when he says AOC +3?
The squad, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez plus the Ilhan Omar, Shooter Tlaib, and can't think of the other one.
Kent, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Everything you said, that's what I was going to say.
I've never heard him say that, so I was really
I haven't either, but AOC is plus the 3. I think that's the squad.
I think we should
what they call them.
we should try to take some questions
Yeah,
from
Congress.
the comment section. But I don't see any questions on my end. But I can't see your chat, Andrew. So you might.
Ask questions.
Should I have been broadcasting this whole time?
If you wanted to,
Wanted to.
I mean, you could broadcast it now.
I could broadcast it.
So I think everyone agrees the moderator was much better.
So much better. That mute button, Andrew. Hey, you had the stats on how many times each one is used, right? Hiram was saying that you.
We were just talking about
26 to 17.
How do you know that?
I heard whenever, and then I think I did pretty well. It was, you could hear that switch over when it started interrupting. The chat, did I do it?
Yeah, we only heard it like 4 times.
That was the super audible ones, and not only that, I made sure the audience knew that. Hey, we heard that one.
He's listening for this tiny little.
I think we did a good job of the mutes.
Here.
I was hoping the mute button would be more dramatic. I mean, either way, right? With either candidate, I was just hoping like they would be really impassioned, and all of a sudden you could just hear them mouthing but not hear anything.
I know.
It wasn't as
We
dramatic.
were all expecting like a big mute fest going on, but
Yeah,
no, I'm not going into politics ever. No, never.
ever.
Here.
How come, Andrew?
How come? Because it's like, I mean, at least not in the climate that it is right now. I would not. That's just it's clearly, it's clearly set up for certain people, and it's not. It's not really a conducive environment that I would want to be a part of. Where I feel like I could do more in my lane that I'm in now, that I'm building in this lane specifically, where you provide a media source for all, and then we can hang out and talk about it too. Whereas you watch the mainstream news, whether it be MSNBC or whatever, you can't watch a discussion while reading questions from your viewers at the same time on the mainstream news. Whereas we can do that now here. Because we provide news content with our live streams, and we can also hang out with the viewers and talk about it at the same time. And I feel like that's just a new area.
Hey,
I'm linking it right now. Sorry, guys. I'm gonna make sure to link this over. I'm just Chesla's on it. She's cracking.
Man, yeah, they're look. I'm just showing you, CJ. Your fans will find you if it's on my stream. Yeah, they found you on my stream through Andrew's Snack Squad. So they've traveled quite a distance, man.
They've traveled a distance.
Tell you what, man. We're all connected. We're all part of this big circle of life, man.
So, do you have any questions in your comment section, Andrew?
Let me try to find some. I'm gonna scroll back up, but there was definitely some.
Let me go over here. Let me go ahead and share this. Andrew, you have to tell me how to share.
I got it.
How do I share? Damn you, technologies! You've thwarted me again. It actually just responded. I don't know why. Ooh,
I have to wait for it to catch up a little bit.
I'll tell you what. Okay, well, I can go into the live now here. I got it. And then we go. No, share. Wait, I got a share button. Booyah! I found it.
Nice.
And the fierce, what does that say, Alicia? Oh, hey, I know Alicia.
Yeah.
The day one viewers, early days.
Yeah, she started with you. Then she says she found my stream, and now she says it's kind of weird to see us all three. It is kind of crazy, how we all kind of found this streaming thing. I mean, at least I stumbled into it by accident. I was just streaming one day, and it just like blew up, and here I am now.
That's what happened to me.
Talking to this group of degenerates.
Yeah.
This is what it's de-evolved to, Hiram.
Someone wants to know who we think won.
I think
won?
it's evolved, huh?
Someone wants to know who we think won. I don't really think there's a victory there.
I mean, there's no competition.
It's more or less who, like, did it change how you feel, or did it drive you to voting?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So, like, what's interesting, man, is historically presidential debates don't really sway opinions. And I think here's the thing. I think that, like, most of the candidates will spend their time talking to their base rather than talking to each other. You know, they're talking to each other, but more than anything, they're thinking, how do I get the people that are already support me excited? Because, you know, what I think that really matters is not whether or not it changes your opinion, but does it get you excited enough to go out to vote? I took this class on congressional elections, and the one thing I took away from it is elections are determined not by how persuasive a candidate is, but more by how many people vote at the end of the day. You know, so I think that, you know, my mind wasn't changed, and I think that a lot of the points we had already heard before, and I don't think anybody's mind changed. But hopefully, more people got excited to vote after watching these two talk with each other. You know, I don't know, but it didn't change my mind. I don't think it changed a lot of people's mind, and I don't think anyone won. I think the only people that win are the people that get more people out to vote. So
there you go.
See, I agree. People go in there with, like, which is too bad, because I would hope that the doing the diligence and the research prior, you know, around the elections is what's going to get you the understanding of who you're going to vote for. It's not going to, you know, you're not going to come away from it being like, I just realized who I've fallen in love with either one of these candidates.
Unless you're Kevin Bone. That guy was
unless you're K-Bone?
Kevin Bone. Is that what they call him nowadays? I don't know what they call him. The guy with the shirt, right, with the red sweater that was like, I'm undecided.
Sorry.
What the heck was that?
I was a sneeze. I think a demon just climbed out of this person's face.
Watch out. Hey, CJ, I didn't tell you this, man. But on the subject of
You're
COVID,
allergic to demons too?
No, but
that's good. We'd always know when there's a demon near, you'll start sneezing. Got you. Hide.
Anyways,
it reminded me of the sneeze, just anything COVID related. I was telling Andrew when we were playing COD, we were playing Call of Duty, and I was telling him that I went to go film this protest, man. Alex Jones lives in Austin, so you can imagine how interesting things might be once in a while. And there was this anti-mask group outside of the Capitol. And in particular, you know, my attention was caught by these people handing out free butt plugs. And they said, in addition to covering your sneezes, you need to cover your farts, because they spread COVID too.
How many people kept the butt plug but threw away the mask?
That's what people are going to come over and find.
That's awesome.
That we need to go ahead and censor our farts.
That's what anti-mask people were saying. Yeah, like they're trying to make it seem really silly by doing something crazy like giving out free butt plugs.
Well, that is pretty silly. Because butt plugs aren't free, bud. Everybody knows those cost a good amount of money.
Are you telling me I should have taken some? I should have got home with a few.
You should have snagged a swag bag of BPs that you could have hawked off to the highest bidder. You could have made the hell out of those things, bro.
Oh my God. Hey, $20 is $20.
$20 is $20. So hey, let me ask you guys: are you hosting a watch party right now, or how's this working? What do I do here? What do I do now? What's this part? What do I do?
This guy, CJ, just hit start. Just hit start. Hit the start button.
It's a watch party.
Is it on CJ TV? Is it on CJ TV Media
LLC?
Popcorn
there now.
Yeah. Is it on your personal or is it on your media page?
My media page.
All right, good. Thank God. You have 10 times as many followers there than you do your personal.
So hey guys,
there
we go.
What do you think we need to do about COVID? Like
punch it in the face.
Punch in the
tell you.
Did we
go away, COVID?
You guys, I figured out how to avoid COVID. Check it out. You guys want to see how you avoid COVID? Just like this. All you got to do right here is just go from ear to here and
It's gone.
you're safe. Just duck. COVID can't get you under 4 feet. If
COVID-19.
restaurants have taught us anything, all you have to do is wear your mask while you're walking, and once you sit down, you're clear. It's a cloud of COVID that hangs at about 4.5 feet.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the answer you wanted, though, Hiram. Okay.
I do what I can, seriously though.
That's a good move. You got that.
I wear my mask, you know, when I'm in the crowd, when I'm near people.
Yeah.
I'm in close quarters, but then when I walk away, I pull it off.
You don't ever wear them. I've never seen you in a mask ever, Andrew.
You know how many times people told me, take that diaper off your face? It's like, all right, come take it off.
Come take it off.
Come take it off me. But no, I wear it. That goes back to, again, our earlier conversation where we're all in control of ourselves, and if we just start, you know, if we start doing that and, you know, take accountability of our own actions, that might inspire others to do the same thing.
I did the watch party wrong, just so you know. It's on my personal page. What are you gonna do? I'm a lost cause, guys.
Social media is like, oh.
I'm 73 years old, guys. What do you expect from me? Can you get them to host a watch party on the media page too?
Hey,
which one do I log into?
You're good with wearing masks. You're good at wearing masks.
I'm good at it, like the best, dude. Like, all I gotta do is this right here, and then pull it up, pull it down.
Perfect form, man.
That's the form. It's this done.
What are some of the key forms? Like, how do I? If I want to be the best at wearing masks, how do I do it?
Done.
If you want to be better than me, just wear it once, and you're already better than me. cover your mouth when you cough. You're better than me, apparently. I get so much grief for it, man.
Yeah, you do.
I do. Those are facts.
Why? Well, you don't wear a mask, CJ?
I do. Like, so we went to after we did the coverage today. With the protest earlier, with the shooting in Waukegan, we went and visited someone in my community who's actually doing radiation, and she's staying at a hotel over in Zion while she's going through her treatment. And you know, I was, you know, aware of the fact that, like, I double masked it there. You know, I put on 2 different masks, you know, to make sure that I was, you know, conscientious of the fact that those are people that are at high risk, you know. And then, you know, when I was at the protest again, I find myself being a little more conscientious. I think I'm coming around to the fact that it's not about what I think; it's about how it makes people feel.
Yeah.
You know, and I want them to feel comfortable being around me, and I be conscientious of that. And I think that I've been in the past maybe a little stubborn about that, you know, and I've had kind of a chip on my shoulder about some things, and I've had to really soften up on the fact that, like, you know, whether you are wholeheartedly behind something, like, you got to choose what show. You know, it goes like this. I realize that I need to be more open to the fact that if it's not a big deal to me, then why make it a big deal? You know, if it's a big deal to someone else, but it doesn't bother me, like, let's not make it a big deal, right? So, like, my sister and her husband have this thing that they do, and it involves zippers and a bunch of other. No, I'm just kidding. But no, but
I was like, whoa, where are we going?
My sister's watching. I guarantee she's probably like,
zippers.
What are you talking about? No, but they've moved on to Velcro now anyway. So no, just kidding. No, but what they do is her and her husband, like, if they have something that comes up, it'll be like, you know, a debate. Like, they're like, hey, this is something that we want to do. And there might be an argument. They'll just put a number. They'll assign a number amount to it, like on a 1 to 10. And if she's like, this is like an 8 to me, and he's like, oh, it's like a 5 to me. Like, all right, cool. Done. Like, it's more important to you than it is to me. Don't need to fight. It's not important enough for me to fight you about it. And if it's important enough for you to feel that strongly, like, we'll just let you have it, you know? And so I think that's kind of like the view that I've started taking on with masks and a lot of things in life right now, is that, like, I'm pretty easygoing and laid back. But if it's really, like, if it really is a strong belief or something for somebody else, like, if it's not a hard concession for you to make, like, go ahead and make it, you know? And
wash your hands, wash your ass.
I really appreciate that, you know, from you, CJ. I think that your willingness to learn or to come around to maybe doing something that you otherwise wouldn't do, whether you know, because you're not always 100% right. You're not always 100% wrong, right?
Whoa.
In most situations.
You had me until you said that.
But it's awesome that, you know, you have that willingness to change. And I hope most people, you know, see that as an example of what everyone should be doing every day with their lives. It's a constant thing. No matter how old you get, no matter what point in your life you reach, like life changes. You know, what we're living today isn't what we were living even 10 years ago, right? Like we weren't having to deal with social media. We haven't had to deal with technology the way we deal with it now. And it's a big question of morality. And we have to adjust to the changes that we're living through society and willing to change, you know, when things hit us. And this pandemic, you know, for example, for even my mom, it's something new. It's something she's never lived through, and learning about it, you know, is tough. But I think at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're perfect, man. As long as you're willing to make those, you know, those changes. And I really appreciate what you said. And I hope that people take that as like a, you know, example of how we could all be better, right? By listening and by being ready to analyze whatever we face.
Bro, you just said something that I think, and I appreciate you acknowledging that. Thank you. Because it's a hard pressed move for me to make. But I think that's something like, you know, and I'm paraphrasing here, but they say that in every good truce or treaty, both parties have to leave unhappy, right? Which means there has to be concessions made on both sides to make an amicable exchange of concession, right? And that's how you get a good truce or a treaty or, you know, ceasefire. You know, both parties have to kind of give up something. Maybe it's ground, maybe it's something else. But I think that what you said is when you listen to people, when you talk to people, like when you have those conversations and you can agree, like, all right, I can make a change here. Like a lot of the things we're seeing in the world right now is people's like stubbornness and their lack of ability or willingness to talk to the other side and appreciate that there might be something there that you can work with, you know? And we see it a lot in the protests. We see it a lot in these things where people are, you know, like, don't talk to police. We don't talk to police. Like, well, how are you ever going to understand the point of view from the other side? And in any walk of life, I would hope that we can have conversations and make concessions in ourselves that may be small, but, you know, those small changes are the things that are going to lead us to big growth, you know? I think, personally. So. Not that I think wearing a mask is going to change the world, but, you know, if it makes people more comfortable talking to me, that's cool. So
see, but it's a principle, man, that really drives that point home, right? Like it's that individual action, but more than that, it's your willingness to uphold a very important and a very fundamental principle that is going to ultimately really change the world. So, you know, I'd say, man, like a lot of people think it's just doing this, it's just me, but really you are a bigger part of everything. No raindrop ever blames itself for the flood, right? Like, but they all do it together.
Yeah. Well, there he is, folks. He just showed up. No raindrop ever blames itself for the flood. Well played, my friend. Yeah. No, it's Someone told me once we are every day we get to make history. We just get to choose how much of an impact and what role we play. And I think that like every day we have an opportunity to make an impact on the world we live in. And like Andrew was saying earlier, if we can find things that we can focus on a small level, then we can kind of find a way for that to, you know, snowball and to pick up momentum and turn into something much bigger. And people see that too, right? You know, I think people see that when they see, you know, they see somebody who's putting an effort or even just trying, you know, like those are the things. And Andrew, I we've talked about this. Like, I feel that there's so much strength and power in the recovery story. And by that, I mean people that are going through recovery from addiction. Because through that, you're finding someone that's going through real life struggle. And they're fighting hard. Like, it's a struggle for their life, you know, but they're fighting hard every day to maintain something so they can have a level of normality and a life that's got a substance that is they feel worth living, you know. But there's so many people that are like afraid to let the world know what they're going through. But I think those are the people that we need to have in the vanguard of our exposure, so we can see that real life hard work that people are putting in just to live life, you know, because I feel like right now a lot of people they're not trying to float anymore. They're just trying not to drown. You know what I mean? They're not trying to swim. We're just like, man, I'm trying to keep my head above water. And the people that are fighting that every day are the real warriors, you know, the people that are out there that are trying, you know, because there's so many times that we have, you know, I think in life we get to places where we've kind of insulated ourselves in comfort, where there's nothing that really challenges our beliefs. Like there you go, Andrew. Challenge your thinking, and and I think that in anything we need to have things that might agitate some growth in us.
Well, so like another thing too is like, every time you think you have it, you just missed it. Oftentimes we think that we have everything and we have all the answers and we have life solved or figured out, or our shit doesn't stink, and it prevents us from learning and growing and becoming again better and becoming a better person, striving for excellence, becoming more self-aware and understanding that our words, our actions, and how we interact and engage with people will affect others. And it's hard for people to speak out about that because they fear of being shunned or pushed away from a group for speaking out about it. It's just a stigma that is unfortunate. But the more voices that we have to talk about it and keep bringing it to the table and discuss it, and whether it be any issue that somebody has that they feel that they can't speak out on it because they have fear, and that shouldn't be the case. Even in the military too, we had the open door policy. Just to give an example, I'll tell a story. So in basic training, we had an issue with our drill instructor or drill sergeant, and we were like, okay, we're gonna go use the first sergeant open door policy. He's like, okay, bet, go ahead, go use it. we walk out of the bear, and we walk into the first sergeant's office, and the drill sergeant's sitting right there. It wasn't a very one-on-one environment with the first sergeant. It was the drill sergeant was sitting right there. We thought it was going to be, a private conversation that we could have with the first sergeant with a problem we were having about the drill sergeant. But no, he was sitting right there. We were afraid to then speak out about how we felt because of the pressure of him sitting there. It's just like environments like that and toxic environments that manifest itself in people not being able to speak their mind, and it's just things that we just need to keep talking about and bringing to light.
Yeah, I'm really big about one philosophy I learned, it's a big and it's a difficult conversation about tolerating the intolerant, right? Like, who should we give a voice to and who shouldn't we, right? Because like a lot of people are like, you can't give a voice to racists, or you can't give a voice to, but ultimately it's really hard for me because I've realized throughout my years doing community activism and whatnot that the more you silence people, the less you challenge yourself every day. The more likely things could get really chaotic, because I think it's true. Like, when you keep your enemy close, when you keep the things that matter to you close, you're able to work with them much more easily, where you're able to have better control or better understanding, and therefore be faster at coming up with solutions. So I don't think, the solution's ever not encouraging conversation or cutting people off, but are always finding a way to let people speak their mind and being critical, but also being, accountable to finding what is the best solution for everyone.
Yeah, and you hit it on the head, man. 100%. I think that all too often, we spend our time and I use the word a lot lately, but we kind of insulate a lot of times. We spend our efforts insulating ourselves through comfort, but it becomes like that echo chamber. Like, everything around us just reinforces what's already around us. And the essence of life is that the vibrations of new beginnings, of change, of organic growth. And we'll never get a chance to do those things if we perpetually put ourselves in a situation where we have stasis, and stasis for me is, if you're just existing, you might as well, if you're just barely living, you might as well get on with dying, but if you're just existing and you're comfortable with just getting by, that's gotta be, they say content breeds contempt, right? And I'm there's going to be a lot of suppressed anger in you if you realize that you're not getting a chance to experience the highs of life and the essence of new exposure. And so there's so many times when we, I think at young ages, we have people, it's funny, I was talking about this on my feed the other day, and I was at an event. It was kind of like a community thing, and they have these cakes. There was 3 different cakes lined up on this counter, and there was this kid that was up there. He was eyeballing this cake, and they were cutting off slices. And one of the cakes was this, it was a chocolate cake, if I remember right. Then there was a Like I'm just gonna say vanilla cake because I can't remember what it was. But then there was the other one that was the Jello cake, right, which is super cool. And follow me on this one for a second. And the kid, I was asking him, I was like, "What's your favorite cake?" He's like, "Oh, I like the chocolate cake." And he'd already had a piece of the vanilla cake. You see, there was like some of it left on his plate. And I was like, "Have you tried this Jello cake yet?" He's like, "No, I don't like that." And I was like, "Have you tried it?" He was like, "No, I don't want it. I like chocolate." And I was like, "Wait, man, but have you tried it yet, though?" And I was trying to be like, "Bro, you don't know if you don't like it because you've never tried it. You might love it." And it's because we had this moment, and I was like, I realize it so often in life we already think we have it figured out. You know, we have all the answers. We assume that we already know everything we need to know, and we're afraid to experience something new that might agitate the fact that we don't have it figured out. You know what I mean? And at a young age, this kid already knew, like, I'm not going to try something new because I already know what I like. And I'm not putting it on him as a young person, but I think that we need to encourage in young people and in all people, you know, try a new slice of cake. You know what I mean? Like, you might find a new favorite. You might find something that tells you, like, oh, maybe I have been seeing it wrong this whole time. Maybe I can do something a little different. You know, maybe there's something in life that I need to experience. And that's exactly what your soul's been waiting for that piece to help you level up. You know what I mean?
And I think it also goes back to encouraging kids to try different things and reach and try different communities. And that way they don't develop a level of complacency when they become adults and be okay, you know, just being okay, which for some I mean, which that might get them by, but it does develop a culture of complacency in oneself, I believe, where you only care about your own little world, or one could care about their own little world, or, you know, they lose interest in the well-being of others, and then it can manifest itself into their societal behaviors and how they interact with people, and manifest itself there. So I think that's incredibly important. Even just using your cake reference, if you want to, and then going back to the youth, just keep and as I was getting older, it was sad to see so many kids stop or drop out of band classes, music classes, just the arts, and it was just starting to fade away, and programs were starting to go away. And my band, you know, I was a trumpet player. We joke about it, but I was actually pretty good. I was actually pretty good.
I played the trumpet too.
That's crazy. I was all state. I was.
Oh, he just threw it in your face, though, Hiram. He's all state though. He's like, I was all state.
I was all state too. You know.
Are we gonna have a trumpet battle? It's gonna have a
trumpet battle. Oh shit! But before I lose this thought, I was, you know, I mean, as a freshman, I was in the top band at my high school, and by the time I was a senior, there was only like one band. Whereas when I started, I wasn't homeschooled. When I started, you know, in high school, there was like multiple programs for the band students, and then, you know, we were left with one when I graduated, and it was diminished. So I just feel like programs at the youth level and kids growing up, and encourage them to continue trying different things and meet in different communities and cultures, and encouraging that will manifest itself into their adult years, and the people won't develop that complacency in your life.
So, you know, what's interesting, man, is that like a lot of what you're talking about is almost by design. Like, I've learned a lot about the industrial era in the United States, and there was this sudden focus on STEM, right? And STEM's incredibly important. I mean, technology, you know, learning more about like mathematics, like all that stuff, like helps us achieve amazing things that you'd say are almost miracles. Like the fact that we could have this meeting right now, you know, in front of as many people as we do, it's incredibly important. But in that, I think, you know, got lost like the idea that there's more than just like mathematics, technology, because mathematics and technology in a lot of ways basically or fundamentally are really about right or wrong. But, you know, when you get into the arts, you kind of expand your mindset, because it's your opportunity to explore a space where there isn't a right or wrong answer, where there's just like whatever you can output as a musician, as a poet, as a writer, whatever it is you are, you know, and there's no one way of doing things like there are kind of like in mathematics, right? Because like in mathematics, you have a particular equation and a particular answer you're supposed to get, and everyone's supposed to get the same answer through the same process. But the arts are nothing like that. But, you know, they kind of got left behind, because during the industrial era, we're really big about, in industry and tech and, and we're teaching schools, we're kind of pumping kids out to do the math and to do the tech, but never really to think critically.
And that's why I think this postmodern era that we're in now, it's like, it's not encouraging that anymore. We're not, it's just beyond me because that's where I didn't even realize, as a kid growing up, that's where we're manifesting it into what we're doing right now, sitting here talking to all these amazing viewers. And I didn't, and it started with me as a kid playing the trumpet, doing solos. I was in the jazz band and I would do a solo, but I started off behind my music sheet. But then, by the time I was a senior in high school, I was out like on the stage in front of the crowd playing my trumpet without any music in front of me, just improvising a solo in my head. And I didn't even think that would manifest into my adult years now, where like I'm creating content for people online, and to do what we're doing now. So that's why I think it's incredibly important to emphasize programs in the youth.
And for those of you that don't believe it or want to learn more about it, especially what you're talking about, Andrew, they could watch a TED Talk, one of the most famous TED Talks ever created. It's called Schools Kill Creativity by Sir Ken Robinson. It's one of the most famous TED Talks for good reason. And it states, and it goes over exactly what you just mentioned, Andrew, this lack of creative thinking, of, looking beyond right and wrong. And I think that we get so caught up in this idea that there's always a right and wrong answer that we become close-minded and we get comfortable with the ideas that we have, which goes back to what you were saying, CJ. You were saying, CJ. Yeah.
That's right, CJ.
That you were saying, CJ, that, people live in an echo chamber or, don't venture beyond what they've already been taught to believe is right or wrong. And it's not hating yourself. It's learning to love yourself by being willing to be wrong. I think that self-love needs and requires the willingness to be wrong. You can't say you love yourself if you can't do that. And you can't grow if you don't love yourself, because like we talked about before, you got to keep, your enemies closer than your friends, because you can't work with things you hate. You can only work with the things that are close to you, with the things you love. And so I feel like that all kind of connects in some really awesome way.
You're killing it right now, man. Those are conversations that I was just having today out on the streets, talking to like Cortez Rice, talking to like some of the, but one of the things we were going into was humble falterings and the things that draw people together, the things that bind people. And I'm a firm believer in the notion that the things that bring people together are the broken pieces of us, because we're drawn to the likeness and the homogenization of it all, to know that there's someone else that can commiserate with us. There's an empathetic level of existence between humans, to say that we're all a little bit broken, in some way we're all stumbling towards perfection. But when we start having these opportunities to express that and to be vulnerable, like Andrew's saying, to open, like you were saying too, is like to open yourself up to the fact that I don't have it all figured out, and there's parts of me that I'm not, that I don't celebrate because they hurt, or because somewhere in me, like I wasn't told, or somewhere in my life I was told I'm not allowed to, or that you have to buck up and take it like a man type thing,
Pick yourself up by your bootstraps,
right? And we forget that like we're meant to be vulnerable. And I think that like there's so many things in life that happen that, here, let me give you an analogy real fast. And this is, speaking of being men, right? And this is something that I drew up when I was talking to a group of young men for this volunteer program that I do called Peak 7 Adventures. They do work with at-risk inner city teens. And we were talking about how it's okay to cry, and how it's okay to experience emotion, how it's okay to go through the full range. And I was talking about Spartan soldiers, okay? If you look at the shields that they had, right, the way these shields were made, they were made out of plank wood, right? And this is the common shield structure. Follow me on this one. And the way they lined up, they were always protecting the man on their left with that shield, right? It wasn't meant to protect them. They were protecting the person to their left. But the way the shield was built was there was a metal band. So if you think about it as a circle, right? Just inside that circle, there was a metal band. So there was that edge of wood around the perimeter. And the reason that was there was so that when somebody tried to hit you with the sword, the shield would actually absorb the sword. It would stick into the shield. Yep. And so the shield wasn't meant to deflect the sword. It was meant to absorb the blow. Mm-hmm. And that would control now the sword, right? They were able to pull the sword one way or another. Pull the sword away, yeah. Right. And then the man to the right was able to use that as an attack opportunity, right? But it was incredibly effective. And if that shield had been made out of all metal, which they had full access to and been able to just deflect anything, right? They could have made those things. Those were strong men. Arrows would have hit the shields. They would have bounced off the shield, but where would they have gone? You know, they would have hit the guy next to them on either side. And so these shields are built to absorb all of these different slings and arrows and swords. And it was done as a way to protect the people around you. And I found that really brought itself into a light where I understand to say that we're built to be strong and we're built to absorb so many things in life. A lot of the hate, a lot of the hostility, a lot of the anger, a lot of the broken parts of the world. And we're meant to take our time to process that, figure it out, filter it, and then find a way to give a message back to the people behind us. And that goes back into my religious beliefs and my spiritual beliefs, I'll say, and to understand that, like, I know, and I'm going to talk about God for a second. So, you know, hope we're not going to cross the line there, but I've been talking about this. We need to have politics and religion need to stop being taboo. But I feel 100% at my most broke point in life that in prayer, I found myself asking why was I going through what I was going through? And I was told, because you can. And I didn't understand that at the time, but I realized I was strong enough. I've been built to go through what I've gone through in life, so that I could better help those that may not be strong enough to go through it, to help usher them to a place of safety and of comfort and of peace. And I think that we as people collectively can work harder to understand that if we stop looking at it from a what's in it for me or how can I service myself, but how can I fix myself by helping fix those around me? You know, how can I better the world by bettering, you know, the things around me? How can I better my world by bettering the things in my world? You know, and so going back to what I was saying is we on a base level can spend more time appreciating. We're meant to feel the emotions we're feeling. You know, we're supposed to cry it out. You know, we're supposed to have those cathartic, like deep, like snot-nosed, bubbled up crying sessions.
So the one thing too, CJ, I'd like you to look up is it's a concept called the man box. It's just all traits like you can think of. If you were to like get a box or draw a box, all traits that you think a man should do or should have. And then you see how many traits you put inside of that box, and then you realize that, you know, how, you know, as men in our mental health and how we view our mental health, that we're putting ourselves in a box by thinking this way, because you can do it. But it's a concept that I learned going through my drug counseling, because as men, we have very strong egos, and it's hard to break ourselves down and really look at ourselves sometimes.
Talk about toxic masculinity.
How the toxic
none of us said it right the first time.
Thing.
Yeah.
None of us wanted to say it correctly the first time.
Right.
Yeah, that thing. So that reflecting. And again, it keeps going back to self-awareness and
you know, like
being okay with it.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. Like, because all of that stuff affects the people around us, you know, as much as it affects us, you know. So it's really important to constantly be self-aware and to be, you know, on top of the things that we could always make better, or the things that, you know, are holding us back, because as much as they're holding us back, they're holding other people around us back too, right? This toxic masculinity affects me as much as it affects my mom and everyone who's had to, you know, deal with it. And that's the same with every single issue. It's like not our issue, but more of a collective issue. I think that we need to, you know, be together on trying to make better. But yeah, it starts with these conversations.
Yeah, I agree. You know, what is amazing is conversations, man. It comes down to being open to communicate. Andrew and I had a really amazing experience, actually, for me, in George Floyd Square. We were underneath the Speedway awning where they have the gas station where they do, it's now the People's Way. They changed that there. But we were sitting down and we were talking. It was the end of the night. We weren't streaming. We were just having a chat. And it was a ground robin of people that were there daily. We were there every day, that had been there every day, part of that occupied zone for the George Floyd Square. And it was a really eclectic blend. We had white, black, we had Native American, we had an Asian dude that was like just The guy. What I'm saying is this eclectic group and these people that you would not expect to see. Like there was like some real like the toughs, you know, like guys that were like they, you know, spent some gang time. You know, I'm trying to find the best way to say this. I'm tired of PC and everything, but these dudes were like, you know, straight off the hood. And these guys were really about it. But we had this incredible conversation, this really eclectic blend of people. And the dude said, you know what the problem is with all this? And I was like, oh, here we go. And he was like, the people can't accept that this is what the world needs right here. They're afraid of this. They're afraid of all of us having a conversation that's going to change the world. And it was that moment where I was like, man, yes, exactly. Exactly. Like I'm in a state far away from home with people I've never met before. And everyone was able to open up. Everyone was able to share their piece. And collectively, we all have that tingle moment, you know, the GBMs I call them, the goosebump moments, where it was like, yeah, this is it. These are those moments.
Yeah, that feels good. That feels
right?
good.
It felt good. And I remember you were talking about that, Andrew, like before we went out there, you're like, dude, you're going to see it's different out here than it is anywhere. This is where it's real. Yeah. And it was beautiful, man. It was really beautiful. And I've had these opportunities traveling the world where I've been able to meet people like in foreign countries even, where it's like you just realize that when you open up and you let yourself be vulnerable to the world around you, like the most amazing and beautiful things will find their way into you, you know?
So my question is, man, like, do you guys think these presidential debates kind of try to push these principles, or you think these presidential debates just serve to do the complete opposite, man? And instead of throw people towards being loving, accepting, ready to create change, ready to criticize themselves, do you think that these presidential debates encourage that, or do they take us backwards?
I'll tell you real quick. Okay. I mean, real fast. I'll say this is all I'll say about it is that I would vote. I would almost like put ballot in box immediately if I could see a candidate that would stop all of the like I've done better than you. This is what I do. This is what you don't do, and be like, hey, you know what? I just want to let you know, like it's an honor to be up on this platform with you, working to better our world. Like you and I right now, we're trying to get votes to get into this office, but no matter what, we're going to be a part of this system. And let's keep pushing to try to make it as good as it can be. And if I feel like you might be a better run for it, like, all right, cool, man. Like I got your back. You know what I mean? To hear somebody actually humble up a little bit enough to just be like, you know what? I'm just going to do everything I can to listen to everybody out there. All the people in that dark room, like Donald Trump said, that he can't see. Like if the voices were the one thing that influenced everything they did, 100% I'd be like, all right, cool, you got my vote. 100% you got my vote. Because I know that you're going to listen to me.
Man, it'd be so cool if these debates were more about like these presidents talking about all the things that they that their ideas don't do right. Like, not good enough. Like, it'd be so much more humble, and I think so much more honest.
Yeah, it would. I think the debate structure is a check in the box at this point. Yeah, that how it is now. It's just a check mark. You know, like okay, here, you know, political commercials, debates, election. I just feel the way it is now is just not. It sucks, actually, in my opinion. And I think it should go more towards like the candidates sit down in an environment like this, or a podcast environment where they sit down at the opposite sides of the desk, or where they can sit down and have a like 3 hour long, 4 hour long podcast with Joe Rogan even offered, I think, to moderate it. They actually did. And actually, to give an example, I didn't know much about Bernie Sanders at all, right? Other than what the news told me about his policies, about what Bernie Sanders had to say about much of anything other than what the mainstream news said. After watching, Bernie Sanders talk for 3 hours or 4 hours on Joe Rogan, or however long, and thoroughly, fully explain and talk and have a conversation, I understand his policies a lot better now. Because I watched a whole conversation about it, and they break it down and have dialogue and go back and forth and conversationally challenge each other's opinions on things, instead of you have 2 minutes, you have 10 seconds, you have like, what the heck is that? That's just garbage to me. So I think it's the political debate itself right now is a check in the box. It's not even doesn't even hold value other than to give ratings to the news channels and probably the presidential candidates' pockets. They're probably doing fundraising during this. That's probably the other reason. But for the voters, I feel as if it does nothing for us now at this point.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, man.
But you're right. You know what would be dope is like, have you seen that Netflix series with David Letterman where he's just doing sit downs with different people? Like
No, I mean,
he does. You know, I'd have to look it up. Maybe someone in the comments knows. They can go ahead and pull it up. But it's like, you know, it's got that talk show vibe. But he goes behind the scenes with like Kanye and with all these other people, and he asks real questions that like legitimate, like not like, hey, we're on national television. Let's go ahead and make sure everyone's okay with the content. And they cut to the quick, man. Immediately there was so many conversations I had that got me emotional right off the bat, and it was like, those are the times when you need somebody or a situation between candidates that are willing to sit down, like, and be vulnerable. Like, when was the last time we saw a candidate that like shed a tear? You know what I mean? That was like, man, you know, this is hard for me to process, or like, you know, this is a big calling. You know, like we have the entire world right now that's going to be affected by what happens here on November 3rd, guys. Like, this is a big deal. Like, just to be raw with it, be real with it, just to step back and appreciate that, like, the whole Teflon situation, the whole how we kept saying, well, that's a very political answer. Yeah, well, you're politicians. That's kind of what you do. You know what I mean? But step past that and realize, like, man, like, be broken for me for 2 seconds so that I can relate with you. Let me know that you are of the people, because I know my people, the constituents that I would associate with, don't have it figured out entirely. You know what I mean? But I know they're going to work their ass off to get there. You know what I mean? I know, like, me personally, like, I don't have all the answers. And I say, even on my stream, like, I'm on an educational journey. I just have an amazing community that's coming with me. I'm trying to figure it out. Like, ever since day one from streaming, I'm like, I don't have the answers. I know that I was really arrogant when I began, and I had a big chip on my shoulder that I didn't realize I had. And I really thought that I had it figured. I figured myself to be a very evolved human being. Like, I got it figured out. And there were so many things that came up, that have come up along the way, that I've had to check myself on. Even things like pronouns. Even when I first started becoming more cognizant of using proper pronouns for people, or using, you know, at first just like masks, I was like, oh, get over it already, you know. And now I'm like, you know, it's not fair for me to discredit how it makes somebody else feel.
And I also think it's okay to be in an environment to understand that someone is growing and learning different things. Because even for me too, when I went back to school in 2019 and or last year, I was learning a whole bunch of new shit. Oh, there's new stuff. Sorry, my language. New stuff with just let it fly. Let a whole bunch of new stuff with how to properly address people and their pronouns and all that. And I had to be taught it, and I don't think that it should be frowned upon for people to seek that information and want to learn it, and don't shame them for not knowing it, you know, right away, because we are a evolving society. You know, we're not a stagnant society. We evolve over time.
Yeah.
So it's important to continue to learn and just be open to it. And if it's something that doesn't, you don't agree with it ideologically or whatever you got, or, you know, in your own world, in your own belief system, you can still respect that person. You can still show them that respect and give them the respect. And then, I don't know, whatever, but I think that it's important to encourage an environment for people to be open to learning as well.
Yeah. You know, it's tough, man. And people don't realize, how hard it is to be in the positions that we've been put into, or we found ourselves in now. Like, there's so much growth, you know, to do, so many things that I know that I did wrong at first too. You know, so many things that you're trying to juggle and trying to figure out at once. And, you know, I think that the one thing that we can give each other as human beings, and something that, you know, as a species kind of, highlights or emphasizes or sets us aside from everything else, is the empathy we could have for each other, right? Like some kind of altruistic empathy where we could feel the struggle of, you know, the person that we're, you know, interacting with, or our neighbor. And that enables us to help each other, right? Like, and when we help each other as a collective, we grow bigger. Because really, I was watching this anime. It was really dumb, called Parasite, and it said, like, one thing is, you could think about humans as individuals with individual consciousness, or you could think of them as an entire organism that now works together to achieve everything we've achieved so far. I mean, like, Jesus Christ, you live in a house. I live, where I live, we got TV, we got a microphone, all because we somehow found a way to work together in the system. And so it serves no purpose to be so hard on each other. And I think it's even better if we work together to try to encourage that learning process. I think the more we encourage learning, the more we're compassionate and understanding, and the more room we give for dialogue, the more likely we are.
And just like even the last 5 months, even the last 5 months alone, how much I've just personally learned out here, learning different, just going to different states and the different cultures within that state or that city I've been to a lot of cities and countries, but these are most of the cities I've been to this year, I've never been to ever. And this, it's just so cool. And I feel bad for, people. And that's why I highly encourage them that again, back to what CJ was talking about earlier with the complacency in life, where you just become stagnant and you don't want to, you just feel as if you've learned everything you needed to learn. You've seen everything you needed to see. And I don't know. I'm young. I'm 27. I have a lot of life left to go, but I don't ever want to be in a position where I'm not actively, learning something new or figuring something new out. Like I'm never gonna. I just don't see myself, becoming that way.
They say there's no growth in the comfort zone and no comfort in the growth zone. And that's a big deal. I think once we get into that like cruise control,
uncomfortable.
How many sayings can you think of, CJ? You always have some really cool sayings.
I'll just drop them, man. Well, in 73 years of life, I've come up with a few, But yeah, man, that's that's Drew. I like what you're saying. You know what I mean? I think that's spot on. I think we need to reach out to people on a human level. You hear that? Someone wrote in my comment, humans are humans and all humans have feelings and just want love in the world. And I think that we forget that, when we strip away everything, when we take away, the trappings of life, when we remove the politics of our ballots, when we take away, the title of your position, whatever company you work for, whether you do or don't, on a base level, we're all human, right? And that should be the first thing we wake up to, is that like, hey, we're all human, right? Like, and we hear that a lot, and it sounds just so juvenile to even say, well, we're all human. No, but like, what does that mean to each individual that lives out here? But for all of us, like, we can appreciate that all three of us here are connected by something at one point. You know what I mean?
Which I'm gonna break it down too. So this is how I met Hiram. I was in Tulsa, and he had been watching my streams, and I, at the time, this is the first we hadn't known each other yet, and I wanted to get to the rally, and I don't think I had a ride, or I posted something, and he messaged me. He's like, "Hey man, I'll pick you up. I'll give you a ride there." I was like, "Okay," and he came and gave me a ride for my B&B, and dropped me off right at the gate. Right. And so that was the first time, and he was just so cool. And he's out there. He's got his big rig, and he's out there at the shoulder pads. And
have you seen my setup, CJ?
Oh man,
no,
dude, he's out there. He's got it. It was just so cool.
It's a whole monopod here.
That big thing.
Are you a Joby monopod too?
No. This is a Siriu monopod, and it stands up on its own and stuff. It's huge, and usually I'll attach my GoPro here, so it looks all intense, and then I'll have my phone on it. So
yeah, look at that thing. So he's got that intense.
I don't trust cyborgs, bro.
Oh, he's out there, dude. He's out there like RoboCop out there.
Pretty much.
Look like up armored, or like Judge Dredd. That'd be out there.
There you go.
So then I met CJ in Portland officially the second time I went there. During my birthday, Soul Luna organized an event. And I finally got to meet him there my birthday weekend. So that's how I met these two. And then I don't think you two have met in person yet, have you?
No.
Not yet.
No.
Well, we'll fix that.
Nope. Not yet. Not yet. Will. Are you going to be in DC? Are you going to?
I'm not sure if I'll be in DC yet. We'll see. You're talking for the 3rd, right?
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. Probably. We'll. I'll see what's up. I haven't thought about it, man.
So maybe this might be a thing for you to do there, Hiram. Maybe do a weekly thing where you have streamers on and we talk.
Bro,
Yeah,
I'd be down, man.
I mean, I think people specifically want us.
They want. I'm reading in the comments like they want.
Same
this.
here. It's on my end as well.
Or
So
maybe
for
we
me,
do like a
I
talk.
think you guys make the magic, you know.
Well, what would make it interesting is that we all have our own network, right? So we could bring people in from our own network, and there's plenty of other squares we could put in here. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
I think so.
that'd be a great opportunity to do that.
Yeah, no, and I think I'll definitely be doing this more often too, man. I mean, like it's always awesome to hear. Like, there's so many people out there, man, that are as amazing and as insightful as you guys, and not putting them out there is a shame. It'd be a loss of wisdom and intelligence. So,
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I feel like that there's a lot of people in my audience too that we could put on the screen and like we could talk with them and really hear what they have to think too, because a lot of people in our audiences have been a part of this too and watched
oof, man.
everything we watch, and just to hear their perspectives on things, because a lot of our audience, have work in different professions. Some are nurses, some are law enforcement, some are firefighters, some are every walk of life. I think follows our streams, and it'd be just interesting to hear what they have to say.
Dude, and it's an experience watching this stuff happen. I can tell you specifically because I was watching CJ when you were in Kenosha, you both. I was going between the streams and I remember like the fire and the church and everything that was happening down there. And when you're watching, man, it's hard not to live it yourself in your own way.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And like Andrew said, I'm sure there's a ton of people out there from so many different walks of life with a completely unique experience, based on what they watched on the stream. I mean, it was a moment that I realized I was like, oh shoot, this is what people go through when they're watching my stream. Like, you don't realize because you're there.
Yeah.
But you're almost like living it, like really emotionally. You know what I mean? It's like you're there, it's happening. It's like, it's intense.
Yeah. That's the biggest. I mean, honestly, I feel that Kenosha for me, and Andrew, I'm sure you can agree at some point with.
I'll talk after you, Don.
But the change in how I view now my stream really came about in the wings of everything that happened in Kenosha, and it was because of the connection that people made me aware of to them, and how viewing the stream helped connect them to what was really happening. And we all know that, like, hey, we're out here live streaming, this is what's really going on, you guys can see it happening. But to have people we're crying on your shoulder with you, and like you're having this deep emotional connection and gratitude for just giving them an opportunity to experience it with you and connect it to their safety, knowing where the safety zones were, like knowing where the fires were, knowing where the riots were, but also being able to experience it so that it wasn't like getting that call in the morning saying someone you love died last night. It was like being able to be in the hospital and hold their hand, and that, that opportunity to be there in the passing, like when they were going through this traumatic event out here, like we were going through it together, and we just got to be that conduit to help them process it, in a way that they wouldn't have had the opportunity to have before. And I realized that there was almost like a higher level of responsibility tonight, or not tonight, when I'm saying, sorry, I just read the comment, but there's a higher level of responsibility. But it's my eyes go and my brain follows. But there's it's just a higher level of not responsibility, but opportunity to really give people something that'll give them peace. There's people that that don't have the opportunity to come out of their house, so they will never experience the walks that we've been able to go on, and go to the places that we're able to go. And we're able to take, especially in this world of shutdown, this cancel situation that we're in, where everyone's kind of isolating themselves, or they're being isolated without their consent, whatever it might be. They're put in a position where they don't have exposure, and like we get that, and so I was talking to a couple of streamers last night that I got respect for, and the biggest thing that I was encouraging them was like to appreciate that, like we have to make sure, and this is on a side note, that we don't allow like people that can't appreciate the scope of our vision to derail us in the process of our growth, because that vision is taking so many people's eyes with us. We're able to go and do things that other people may not ever in their life experience. And they're connected to you and me and the way we experience it, you know? And so we just get an opportunity. It's a beautiful opportunity. When we were marching, Drew, the other day, when we came into town, we first came into town, there was like a little train trestle overpass, and I was on my feet and I was just like, I love what I do. You know, I got real emotional before we ever even got to the finish. I got really emotional and I was like, I'm in love with what I'm doing right now. Like, there was so much love around me. There were so many people that were just full of joy.
I've had that moment, man.
Right. And I got a chance, and I was just like, man, I'm so connected with what's happening right now. I don't care what the politics are behind it. I don't care what any of that. Like, I love the fact that I'm out here and I've got my stream, and people were there and they were happy to be there. And we get a chance to bring that to people. And I think it's a beautiful gift. And, you know, I thank God that I get this opportunity, because for me, it's not like, I don't think of it as a job. It's like it's a calling, you know. It's like,
yeah,
like Andrew and I said on our way to Kenosha, to kind of tie that all up, was, remember we were driving in, we were both like, man, at first we didn't want to go, but then on our way there, we were like, there's something about this, like, we're supposed to be here. And then we both kind of like made it clear, like, man, this is manifest. Like, we were meant to be here tonight. And then it was like 4 nights, and, you know, and then Kenosha just is, I'm still here, you know. So
and then I think for me, it's just all about human connection, and you know, the live streams, and, you know, real life and the internet will never be the same. Real life, you know, will 10 times out of 10 put the internet out of the water. Even though we're trying to create this virtual space of like real life online, it's still starkly different. But yeah, my moment for me too, like, where I just realized where I love what I'm doing was, I think it was in George Floyd Square, where we had like a DJ booth, and it was DJ Phoenix from Florida, and they were playing music, and like there's a full moon, and it just kind of felt like the ending of like the movie, like, because Minneapolis, like, that's when like our stuff finally like chilled out. And it was like, you know, like there's music playing, there's like hundreds of people in the square, and just like music playing. I was getting copyright strikes. I didn't even care. I was like, hey, I was dancing up on the stage. I was having a good time. I was like, yeah, like, I really love doing this. I love bringing people to see what's happening on the ground, and it is a humbling experience, and it is so cool.
That's funny. That's what, as Soul Luna said, that's the first time I ever met Soul, was when you're just that moment you're talking about. I'll just, for 2 seconds, like, I was standing beside him and I didn't know that was him. Mm-hmm. And then like we were out in Portland, and there was like the standoff kind of came to a head, and there was like the tear gas finally cleared out, and there was like the protest line, and there was like the law enforcement, and the protest, like all the tear gas cleared out, and the music came up, and Soul just says, roll credits. And I was like, it just cracked me up. So roll credits, like, yep. Oh shoot, you're Soul. And I was like, okay, but I was like, man, roll credits. But it's that moment where you're like, it's like a perfect ending to the movie, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and man, we also, you know, I also owe a lot of this to the mods and everyone in the background that, you know, jumped on and believed in the mission, man. Because the moment for me, like the big moment for me was when I, you know, sat down and I thought about how dedicated, you know, some of these people were to what I was doing out there. You know, their support and them being in the chat at least once a day, like all kinds of, you know, supporters, whether they were mods or not. It was inspiring. And to me, you know, it made me realize that there was kind of a need for what I was doing, for one. And two, you know, it just made it so much easier to go through all those difficult moments, because it's not easy, right? As much as I love it and I found a passion for this, it's been a difficult journey, but not as difficult as it could be, because I have all that support, man, and realizing that just gives me the energy. You know, I get my energy from the people in the comments and from the people that are doing the mod work, man. When I feel tired out there, when, you know, like there's been days I march up to 6 miles, I just, you know, I look at the comment section and I get that energy to keep going, man. Even if, like, you know, I ran out of snacks or energy, like I just find it somehow again.
Yeah, man, you hit that on the head. There's so many moments where, like, and I never used to read comments. You probably noticed, like, even back in concrete days, like, anytime I would look at the camera, because I was always on mic with, you know, Ian down there, and like, I would see one comment and I was like, oh, how dare you? I can't believe you'd say that. And he was like, bro, you can't leave. And so I never looked at comments. I just never did it. I was
How
like,
dare you?
yeah, what did you say to me? And I'm like,
What
but
did
I
you
missed
say?
like the 5,000 other amazing comments. But I was
Ian,
finding
bring them
one-
to me. Bring them
Yeah,
to me.
right. Like, you know where I'm at. You come here to me and say that to my face. So
Bring
but
them
like,
to me, Ian.
yeah, so I got over that to the point where like, and then now, you know, independently, like the community that I have, you're right. Like everyone works so tirelessly with us, you know, the mods to maintain that healthy community standards. But then like the comments that come in, man, they do revitalize you. They, like you're saying, you're spot on with that, bro. Like those times when you're like, man, like I used to dread, dude, waking up to my phones. You know, I was like, oh, there's going to be something. I'm going to have to hear some hates. Someone's going to say that I'm this or that. And then it slowly got better and better. And now it's just like the comments are like people just, they feed you with love, man. And I think it's because we put that back out, you know, and we're getting a reciprocation on the effort and the level that we put out there. And I think that's, you know, I think it's great to see that like there's people that are homogenizing with us that have like-minded set of beliefs that we can operate under, you know, under love, you know, and under like
it's highly important that, you know, with us as that have platforms to foster that environment. You know, we can't just rely on it to, you know, happen naturally, which now it is because we fostered that environment of community building and encouraging more people to join the live streams, because the comment section, you know, in our lives, because you can go to a mainstream news live stream now, because mainstream news is doing the live stream thing, and it's just like thousands of comments. You can rarely read them, and they're just a bunch of trolley comments because everyone knows you're not going to read no one's going to that matters is going to read the comments. Whereas ours, it's like, you know, we can interact back and forth with you guys, and the moderators, that it's all volunteer work. You know, none of this is paid. You know, we're not making profits doing this. We're not, you know, we're not cashing out the bank, breaking the bank doing this. It's mostly volunteer work, including the work of those that work behind the scenes, and it's long hours too for them because they're up on the computer staring at a computer screen for hours while we're out there.
Yeah, man. I mean, like even just this conversation, you know, you got mods working, and look at the time, bro. It's 12:28. We started a little bit before 10 or at 10. It's been at least an hour to 2 hours and a half.
So go back. So it started for me, you know, CJ was talking about Kenosha, and that was like his, you know, where he saw the human connection. But that's where, you know, I was gonna get back to, but I started seeing it in Minneapolis right away, where like I'd be live, and you know, I'd tell the stream like, hey guys, like I gotta go home, I gotta get my phone charged or whatever, and like a minute later somebody would show up in person with a phone brick and a cord, and they'd say, no, here you go. Oh shit. Yeah. All right guys, never mind, someone just showed up, charger and a phone brick, I guess I'm staying out here. And that happened like almost every single day, or like somebody would give me a ride, or like people in Minneapolis that, you know, I'm from St. Paul, which is 651, which is a different area code, which is on the other side of I've only spent the last 2 years of my life over here. I spent one majority of my life in St. Paul, which is the other city. So I didn't know anybody in Minneapolis really, except until all this happened. And I saw how welcoming that the south side of Minneapolis is, and that community down there. And it was just like, holy crap. Like every day, it's just still humbling when I go down there and see the support from real people that watch. And then when we were in Kenosha, CJ, the minute it hit me too, or I think it was the morning after the church fire, where a viewer came up or drove to me and you and said, hey, I've been watching your guys' stream. Can you guys go to the water and just like go chill over there for a second? I'm gonna get choked up thinking about it again. But like it just hit me like, holy shit, like this, like we're in this town, like in the United States of America. I've never been in Kenosha, Wisconsin in my life. And like this resident who's been watching their city burn the entire night, it wants us to go, you know, show a moment of peace, you know, so that way the city can, you know, that he knows are watching, and he knows that his community is watching with him, so they can show the world, you know, that there's peace in that town, and it's not, you know, the entire town isn't on fire. It's like there's that beautiful look of the lighthouses and the water and the lake,
Yeah.
And this is like an otherworldly experience for me at that moment, man.
Bro, that was beautiful, man. And you remember, like, we got to the waterfront right as the sun was rising. I remember they came up. He's like, "You guys don't think this is what our town is all about." And we saw people that were cleaning up the glass already. They were just came out to help the neighbors. It wasn't their stores. They were just cleaning up glass. And then we got to the waterfront and we were sitting there watching the sunrise. And I remember we were both like covered in ash and soot and just sweat and just broken down and like just beaten up. And then Karen showed up, and the good Karen, and
The good Karen.
the good
Yeah.
Karen. And she showed up and was like just emotional, very emotional, and it was hugged both of us, and was like, you know, I want you guys to come into my house. Let me make you breakfast. Let me make you some food, and just breathe, you know. And so I remember we went in, and you're right, man. It'll get me too. You got it. But we had a chance to,
Don't you do it.
right? Don't do it. Don't do it. But we went into her house, and I remember like she made eggs for us, and I laid down on her floor with Oscar the cat, and like we don't know this person, but she was like, come into my home, and like I just laid on the floor and I hugged her cat, and I fell asleep for like 10 minutes, and then I ate some food, and then just like Andrew was saying, like it just opened up this world of new encounter and experience for us. Like when it started sprinkling a little bit. I would say something like, man, I'm really thirsty. And I'd get a tap on my shoulder within like 3 minutes. I'd get a tap, and there'd be 2 or 3 people there with Gatorades or, you know, bags of water, or, you know, just showing up being like, hey, you look thirsty. Or they started raining, and I was like, oh, it's starting to sprinkle.
The
I'm
umbrella.
going to find an umbrella. And literally, like within a minute, I got a tap on my shoulder. There was someone there with a bag of snacks, an umbrella, and some water. And they're like, here you go. And they had backup umbrellas too, here if anyone else needs one. And I was just like, wow. This is the connection we have, where people they're 100% attached. Like I'd be like, oh, I need to get to their part of town. They're like, a car would pull up, and they're like, get in. I got you. I'm riding in cars with strangers should be the subtext to our show, because we spend so much time just hopping in and making new best friends with people. So
And
the stream is beautiful, man. Like the connection that it really is. Like if you think of like that term, even a stream, right? Like it's ever flowing, right? And it brings us to. And it takes us to bigger water, right? It takes us to deeper water. And I think that's beautiful. If we could all just step in the stream together and let it take us to bigger water and deeper water, like we can collectively move in a direction. It's beautiful, man.
It is, and again, that's why we're discussing this, because we're talking about the humanity we've seen out here, and like the
Absolutely.
connections that we've made, and then just the biggest, you know, the moment that I saw too, it's Minneapolis actually. You know, that was the most humbling experience for me, you know, in Kenosha, but the first time I saw humanity, because, you know, Minneapolis, I thought I lost all hope for it. I was just out there, you know, I'm out there just watching my entire, like in Minneapolis just burned down, and there was a building on fire, and a man who was underneath a light post or underneath one of the street lights, and he was like drunk and homeless, and he was just sitting there, and the building was just ablaze.
Yeah, you showed me that corner. That's right. Yeah,
completely ablaze. And there was a group there trying to force him out of there, and he didn't want to leave. He said he wants to die. Like he would.
Uh-oh.
So the group grabbed him,
Ah.
and they got him out. They didn't leave him there, of course. And so I'm watching this happen. Like, you guys are all gonna, like, that building's gonna come down, and it did. But they just grabbed him, and just like eventually, because he had broke away, and he walked back and just sat back down, and like I was ready for this building to come down on him. And like now that group of like 5-10 people that were out there grabbed him and pulled him across the street and threw him across the street to safety. And I was like, holy shit. Like, and that was like around buildings just on fire. Like there's not a single building around me that wasn't burning at that moment. And that to see that act of humanity right there was just like, I couldn't even, you know, I was in shock.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how many more of those moments, Drew? I mean, and Hiram, I'm sure you could say the same thing, that we capture and we have captured so many of these incredibly iconic moments. But can you imagine how many more we're not even seeing? Like all the ones that are happening, I mean, all around us at all times. Like those moments that like other people are experiencing, that they just don't have like this exposure platform that we have, you know, like And I just think it blows my mind to think that if we could turn the world on to just like showcasing, like every lens could be turned on, like, all right, we can see it all.
Somebody asked me, "What are you going to do after the protests are over?" And I thought about it for just a minute. I was like, honestly, it's like all you have to do is go out there, and it's more than likely that you're going to stumble upon something incredibly powerful, man. Like whatever it
Every
is,
day.
I went to give some waters with this group to this homeless camp that I live by, like just it's about 5 minutes away. I wasn't even going to live stream, man. And this older lady who's well into her 70s, she looks like she's had a rough life. Like she looks older than 70, right? She looks like she could be in her 80s. She had this red hair, and they called her Mama Red. She gave me a tour of this little tent that she had full of supplies for the homeless people in that camp. And she would go what she said was called lerping, which was like dumpster diving, and she tried to find things for the people that needed like things in the camp. And then like I saw that people living in that camp, homeless people, would come up to her. She was homeless herself, and ask her, "Hey mama, like I need some tampons or I need some shoes." And then she would go back there into her tent, pick up what she found. She would clean up everything she found and she would give it to them. And I hadn't even planned a live stream. And that's when I was like, these moments, they're happening everywhere all the time, and
Yeah.
and they're not all being captured. And you know what? I told myself that I was going to go out there and try to make a difference by not, forget the money, man, because that's where the mainstream media goes. They go wherever they make the most money.
Makes the most money.
But,
It's gonna drive
but the truth is, there's so many things happening out there that are so powerful that the media doesn't get just because they don't think it's going to make them a quick buck. And hopefully
it inspires people. It inspires people. It really does. Like regular people see that, and it'll motivate someone to do something. And again, and then it goes back to what can I do in my own world to inspire other people, or just even if that's just simply taking care of if I have a house, if I'm just mowing my grass every day and I have the best looking yard, best looking grass in the neighborhood, then my neighbor will be like, dang, my neighbor's grass, he's got some green grass. I might have to make my grass look a little better. I don't want my mom coming over here and seeing my grass look like this and my neighbor's grass looks like that. It's the power of human connection and inspiration that we have over each other. Not over each other, but with each other.
With each other, yeah. Do you remember? You guys might not remember because I've got like 50 years on you guys, so it might have been before your time. But there was an ad campaign that went around, and it was like kindness, pay it forward was kind of the idea. And I loved the commercials. The commercials were so awesome. It would be like there was a guy like walking down the street, and he had headphones on. He's bopping along. And next, a guy reaches over and grabs him, and he stops. And like he didn't hear the fact that like there was a car honking its horn and it was getting ready to go by him. And then someone across the street sees that happen, and they're walking along, and they see like a stroller and some baby's toy falls out of it. And they pick it up and wipe it off and give it back to the baby. And someone across the street over there sees that happen, and it's like this contagious thing. And it just kept going to all these random acts of kindness, right? And that really stuck with me. And that was years ago. And I was like, man, like people are always watching you. They're always watching. Mm-hmm. Like no matter what you think, always going to be somebody who's listening or watching you. And this live stream is a real indicator, because I know there's times when I'm live and I'll forget about it. Andrew, you have bad dreams about it. You know what I mean? Right.
Yeah.
But like,
wow.
We're always watching. We all need to get shirts that say like always live. We're always live. Type. But
stay alive.
But yeah, right. But appreciating the fact that like people are always watching, and they're looking. A lot of them are looking to you for an indication as to how they can be. And I was going to put the quote up, and I quote it all the time, and I mentioned it earlier, but and I'm gonna read it to you guys real quick here. So, but it was redone by Nelson Mandela in '94 when he became president of Africa, and but it was originally written by Marianne Williamson, and I'm just going to read it real quick because I think it really is pertinent to what we're talking about right now. But it's our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is not our light, it is our light not our darkness that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God, and your playing small does nothing to serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We are born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our light shine, we unconsciously, and this is what I'm talking about, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And I've always lived, like, I always had that on my door when I was my first apartment in Seattle up on Capitol Hill. And I just reminded myself that, like, there's so many people that are looking for you and cues in life. You know, they need to look at you to understand how they can better operate. And these streams are a great thing there, like a great indicator as to how we can do things, you know. And I think it's beautiful to know that, you know, all it takes is, you know, making that gesture. It doesn't have to be big, but it might spark something in somebody else that could be big. You know what I mean? And I used to always say, like, I mean, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to change the world. And then I opened up the thought that, like, just let me touch the mind that changes the world. Let me do something that sparks that revolution, or let me do something that ignites this passionate fire in somebody to do something incredible, you know?
So what do you think it is, you guys, that prevents people from getting to this moment where they realize that self-realization that they can do they really can do any, like, what they put their mind to, if they just do it, or, you know, or find that motivation to take a risk, or be comfortable being uncomfortable? Well, how could we motivate? Maybe even if it's just doing this, I guess. But what did you guys say? Just start with me.
I think the first step is trying to overcome that natural instinct to avoid what's uncomfortable. Because I think that, you know, it's something that makes humans distinct. It's like superhuman to be able to look beyond our fears, to be able to want to be uncomfortable. Like, because, you know, evolutionarily, whether we believe in evolution or not, like, humans, you know, instinctively are built to avoid danger, right? Like, this isn't a question of, like, evolutionary.
Self-preservation is what it comes to.
Yeah. Self-preservation is huge, and so it's really natural for us to want to be, you know, comfortable at every moment. I think that actually, if anything, that's the norm, right? That's what we're all kind of default. That's our default setting, and so, like, I think that it really takes kind of taking a leap of faith, and that's what I think is really amazing about human beings, is that we have this ability to do things based off of something called faith, which is, you know, we kind of turn a blind eye to instinctively what we feel we want to do, right? And we take that leap and do something unique, something different. And I think that's what's gotten us so far, right? It's that ability to overcome that you know, feeling of discomfort or fear. But it takes a lot, you know, it takes a lot of work. And I think that as you grow, you learn that, you know, sometimes that fear is, you know, is irrational, or, you know, not as necessary as you would think you would be in it. And you learn to be confident, but I think you have to learn, right? To be confident, you have to learn to identify when, you know, what you're feeling is more of an impulse, a knee-jerk reaction, an instinct from, you know, your human need for self-preservation, or when it's, you know, genuine concern. But it's work. It's just like being an athlete, but with your head.
You know, you said two things. I mean, all of that was spot on, man. I think I love what you said about faith. Absolutely. You said something about being superhuman, and I think that I was thinking about superheroes and athletes. You know, it used to be like, I think children need heroes, and we're missing that nowadays. You know, like, Marvel's doing a phenomenal job of trying to recreate that on screen, but in real life, like, there used to be Wheaties boxes, you know what I mean? That had like these Olympic athletes, and they used to have people that you'd be like, kids used to collect baseball cards, you know? They'd be like, man, I want to be just like King Griffey Jr. I want to be just like Kirby Puckett, you know? There was these icons that were like, and they had to live up to that. They were like the Babe Ruth, you know, type thing. Like, and they had heroes, you know, they had people that they were allowed to celebrate as being, you know, bigger than life. But there was something attainable about that. Like, if I work hard, I'll get my crossover, you know, I'll be like LeBron. You know, if I work hard, you know, I might be able to, you know, build that skyscraper. You know what I mean? Like, But I think that we need to reinstill that in our children, that you're allowed to dream big. You know, one of the things, here's another one for you. We need to at all times operate out of our imagination, not our memory. And I think that the problem is that the world has a long memory of pain. There's a lot of things, a lot of you can'ts, and a lot of things, a lot of failure. But we forget that the imagination of our youth is what got all of us to the best things in life. You know what I mean? And I did something on my feed and I reposted it, but which is just about this. And it's like the Wright brothers. You know, I guarantee that the Wright brothers, who, you know, first flight, you know, the first documented flight. There were two little kids like rolling down a hill, looking at birds, and they're imagining like, wow, what if I could fly? What if I could be like that bird? If they had had somebody at an early age say, you need to keep that to yourself, you know, get your head out of the clouds, literally, where would aviation be now? You know? Mm-hmm. And there was a dancer, and then I might have to wrap with you guys, but this is one that I love. And of a famous, so big musicals like Cats and some of the other big name musicals on Broadway. The choreographer behind that, and I'm drawing a blank on her name, so I apologize, but when she was a young woman, she was in school, and she was getting in a lot of trouble in school. She was just not acting right. And so the instructors at the time, they basically they were like, well, here's the options. You know, we're going to have to get her either put into special school, we're going to keep her under strict regiment and really, you know, lock her into like conforming to what we're doing, you know. And this goes back to that TED Talks you were talking about, education killing creativity. And her mom came into a meeting with the counselor, and the counselor and her and the mom were sitting there, and they were going over this. You know, luckily this counselor was kind of a visionary, had the opportunity to see outside the box. And so he was like, hey, I need to talk to you in the hallway. And he told her mom this, and her mom was like, all right, well, you know, distressed. And he was like, but when we leave, he played some music. He turned some music on in his office as they walked out. And as they walked out, they got outside, and her big problem was that she couldn't sit still. She was very fidgety and had all these issues with like maintaining her focus. So he turned the music on, they left the room, and her mom started talking. He stopped. He's like, no, don't talk, just watch. And they watched through the window. And once she saw that no one was watching her, she got up and started dancing. And she just started dancing all around the room. And he was like, she doesn't have a problem with attention. She's just a dancer, you know? And so they put her into schools where she was able to learn ballet. And she became one of the world's most amazing, like, choreographing, like, dancers, you know what I mean? Like, on Broadway, like, helping to produce these amazing musicals. And can you imagine what would happen if we'd have stifled the creativity in that child early on and not given her an opportunity to breathe through her imagination? And I think that's where we need to give kids back that opportunity to have heroes and to imagine big and, you know, operate on a platform that's bigger than life. Because it's that whole aim for the treetops, drag your feet in the mud. But if you aim for the stars, you know, you drag your feet in the treetops. You know, give them a higher elevation of focus and allow them to dream big. But
and I think I 1,000% too, and not even just in the youth, but as adults, I feel it's to encourage that the journey is oftentimes where you'll find the most growth and the most sense of self, rather than the final destination. And it's okay to revel in the journey and enjoy it on the way there, and not necessarily stress out or worry about the length of time. I'm starting to realize for myself, and just to be okay with being in the moment. Just like, I mean, for just having faith in oneself too. I mean, I'm also a believer in God, mm-hmm. and I think it was night 2 or night 1, after I had been out filming. And I don't know if it was God or if it was like it was an inaudible voice. It was like my conscience in my head. And I'm in the shower, and I'm just showering. I'm just, you know, I'm beat, dead tired. It was like 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. or something. I'd been out for like 13, 14 hours. And like this voice came in my head. It was like, start a media company. I was like, whoa, skirt. How the hell am I? Hold on. I was like, wait, are you talking to me? Is that you? But and I was like, yeah, start a media company. I was like, okay, well, how the hell am I going to do that? I have no money. You know, I have nothing. Like, and it was just, like, it didn't matter. And so all it took was just to tell someone about it. And I talked to like 3-4 people about it, including my best friend. And it just went from there. And they just like instantly they dialed into it. They're like, yeah, man, let's make this happen. And like, over time, like, and then that's what I'm trying to tell you. This idea didn't come from me. Like, it was the faith that I had from either from God, which I believe, or you could say the idea, the conscious, my self-conscious sprouted the something that I finally wanted to manifest into my life.
Yeah.
And so, and it was overwhelming enough for me to continue doing it. And like, now I got, a media company, and it's like, holy shit, like, I followed my heart.
Man, I really believing in something bigger than yourself, whether it's God, whether it's an idea, a superhero, I don't know, whatever it is. I think, looking at the world as, bigger than just your ego, is what, catapult you to do more than, what you would do otherwise. Because if you live your whole life believing in only yourself and your ego, then your sights, your perception, and your growth is limited to what's immediately around you and what's in your head. But when you believe in something bigger, you open the possibility for growth in any possible direction you can imagine. I mean, it's almost infinite, and it sounds so cliche, man, but I believe it deeply. Whatever you believe, believing in something bigger than yourself is really one of those big keys to finding the answers to some of the biggest questions out there.
Man,
1,000%. Well, I think we should wrap it up. Huh?
I think, man, for real, like,
I think that's it. we have many avenues left to explore, but I think
well, we could do this again.
We should do this again.
It's awesome. I love talking to you guys. I mean, I didn't think it'd be 12:52 a.m. here. We started, We've been how long has this live been, Andrew?
2 hours and 40 minutes.
Man, a 3-hour conversation, guys.
Podcast worth of time.
Yeah, man.
That's more than a podcast worth of time.
Right.
Doing podcasts.
It was good talking to you guys, though. We should do this again.
Hiram, hey Andrew, Hiram, for real, like, I appreciate you guys opening up and sharing sentiment and being so, like, vulnerable. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course.
And you guys, I highly appreciate you too, and in every single way possible.
Likewise, man. Both of you guys are awesome, man. I didn't expect this, and it's not that I didn't expect it to be as good, but it's awesome that it's been this good, right? So
yeah.
All right, guys.
If you guys could both lean in real quick, a little bit closer. Boop! That just happened. Yeah, you all just got right on the nose. Right there.
Just boop us on the nose.
Right on the nose.
CJ, come here, CJ.
I'm in here. I'm in here.
Boop.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
All right,
Too
you
slow.
guys. Hiram, let us know if you're going to do it again. Andrew or myself, if we ever want to.
Yeah, just hit us up if you want to do this again. Man. I'm totally down.
Real.
Awesome.
Hey, you guys are
Sounds
amazing.
good. Good night.